580 Sports Talk on the air on a Red Friday. Thank you so much for joining us. Jam-packed 4 hours before we hand it off to Royals baseball tonight. KU, K-State, Big 12 openers tomorrow. Should be a lot of fun. Then the Kansas City Chiefs take on whatever it is that's going on in Chicago against the Bears. We got plenty to get to. We'll get our picks. We'll preview, get our predictions. We have got a lot to discuss today. We're going to talk with Matt Derrick as always. We're going to talk BYU football. That's right. Mitch Harper from KSL Sports in Utah and Salt Lake will join us. We will talk all things UCF, not UFC, as I have said multiple times before.
You also had it as USC in the show notes at one point.
USC, you know, you got that school from
that
Florida.
one's not even close.
Yeah, that one's from Florida. So we got that coming up as well. Adam Eaton of Sons of USC, not to be confused with Adam Eaton, Royal Killer,
and not to be confused of Sons of UCF, which he actually is. You say UFC again.
I'm just gonna be glad when Central Florida is no longer playing KU and K-State. Fun fact, they come back up in like 2 weeks to take on KU.
Yep.
So they're going to get real familiar with Forbes Field here when it comes to that. So a lot to get to on this edition of 580 Sports Talk. Give us your thoughts. Hit us up on our text line, 785-272-9429. Also, hit us up on YouTube. Go to youtube.com. You type in 580 Sports Talk. That's 580 Sports Talk. You hit the subscribe button. Let us know your thoughts. You can interact with us on our YouTube comments. You can follow us on Twitter at 580 Sports Talk. That's 580 Sports Talk. It's very, very easily to get involved with us on this Red Friday. That is right. Chiefs versus the Bears. And not only are the Bears dealing with, you know, their DC not being there, their quarterback and the media fighting, their quarterback also not being very good. Then someone decided to steal $100,000 worth of stuff from the Chicago Bears yesterday or last night.
Is that bad?
Oh, man. Hey, what did Buddy Bell always tell us?
It can always get worse. I never say it can't get worse.
It can always get worse, folks. And that is what it looks like. The only way that the Bears have a puncher's chance in this one is if they do the, you know, rallying cry, everyone kind of comes together and they pull off kind of the minor miracle. Like that's it. You know, backs are against the walls. We unite as one. We form Voltron. And we find a way to take care of business. You know,
they don't feel like a very together football team.
No,
that's the problem. Like,
no, they don't.
If you had all of these outside distractions, but you felt like, okay, the 53 are together. Like those guys are a tight-knit bunch. They've got good chemistry. They've got good leadership. They're going to rally around their quarterback. That doesn't feel like that's possible with these Bears. I don't sense that they have that kind of leadership. I don't sense that they have that kind of esprit de corps, if you will.
So here's how, like, and they're not the same, but this is an example of rallying around everybody. But when the Chiefs beat the Carolina Panthers in 2012, when the Chiefs had won one game and the tragedy of Javon Belcher happened, you know, the day before, and no one picked the Chiefs to win, right? Like it was, why are they even playing the game? What's going to happen? I mean, their quarterback is Brady Quinn, right? Good old arms himself, big biceps. And they rallied together and they beat the Carolina Panthers. Like no one thought that they were going to win that game, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not comparing the two because one of them is firing your coach and just a whole bunch of other stuff versus a legit tragedy. But that's what's got to happen, you know. Also, unfortunately for the Chicago Bears, the Chiefs still had prime Jamal Charles at that point in time. He went for 127 yards on 27 carries. But Like, that's the only way. Like, if you want to argue, will they cover the spread? Will they not? I tend to stay away from these type of games just because it's so high, and the Chiefs could be up 30-10, right? And it is not a game at all. 5 minutes to go in the game, they score a touchdown, kick a field goal, and the Chiefs end up, or the Bears end up covering, right? Like, something crazy like that could occur, which is why I stay away from these. This is a terrible matchup for the Bears. You alluded to it yesterday. They can't rush the passer. They can't do a lot of things right. And so my keys to the game for this one coming up, which you can listen to that on the Big 94.5 Country, coming up on Sunday. Very simple. The two, you don't have to break this one down a whole lot. Get off to a good start. If the Chiefs get off to a good start, this game is probably over very, very quickly. I would take the football, score, get up 7-0, force a punt, and you have a chance to go up 14-0 before the second quarter even starts. Get off to a good start. More than likely, the Bears probably are not going to put up much of a fight, but also you don't give them any hope, right? A team that's got hope is a dangerous team. Like the KU, for example, against Nevada. They gave Nevada some hope, and Nevada fought with them the entire game. Don't give them hope. And then my second key, it's not rocket science. Don't let Justin Fields get out of the pocket and run for big yards. I don't think he can beat you throwing the football. Their offensive line is not good enough. I think outside of Moore, they don't have a ton of great talent. Just don't let him get out of the pocket and run for 70 yards, because that's what he did really, really well at the end of the year last year. It was designed runs. Don't let him get out of the pocket and turn this into a backyard football game after he crosses the line of scrimmage. That's it. That is it for the Chiefs. Get off to a good start. The only guy that's going to beat you is Justin Fields if he can run it, because he is fast. He is athletic. Don't let him run around a defensive end or a linebacker. That's it. That's the keys to the game for me. It is a very basic breakdown of this game.
The nicest possible compliment I can give Justin Fields is that he is such an incredible athlete. He has still convinced people he's not a garbage quarterback. Like, the fact that he is so good at what he can do.
If he couldn't run, who is he?
Yeah, if he doesn't have the year as a rusher that he had last year, the Bears almost certainly keep the number one pick and take a quarterback.
Yeah, like that's how good of an athlete he is. He still had people believing.
4.4.
He stinks though. He's not a good player. He's a bad NFL player. So I've got two keys here that are pretty simple, and I'll actually do my second one first here. It just comes down to tackling. You just have to be sound tackling. Now, that is of specific importance this week because Nick Bolton has missed practice all week. Willie Gay has been banged up. That group, that linebacker core, has to be good in this game because they're going to get a lot of opportunities. This is going to be leading tackler is going to have 15 to 20 tackles in this game because the Bears are going to run it a lot. I would be shocked if it's more than, anything other than a 60 plus to 40 split of run and pass for the Bears in this game. So they're going to run it a lot. You got to tackle well. They'll break off some runs. I mean, they're really talented at their running back group. It's not just that they've got a good running scheme. Why are you giving me that look?
I was going to make the joke. Well, yeah, you think they're really talented. A KU running back is with them.
Khalil Herbert is a Virginia Tech running back. He surrendered the ability to be a KU running back when he abandoned the team after 4 weeks before playing TCU that year. Except when he plays well, then he's a KU running back. Anyway,
all right.
He's not even the best running back on that team. The most talented.
It was more of a joke.
I know,
I'm making a joke, and you took that way too serious.
I've been here for 6 years. How do you not know I'm going to do that at this point? Well, of course, I'm going to take it serious. No, I'm kidding. I'm messing with you now. But the most talented running back on that team is Roschon Johnson. In terms of actual, hand the ball off running backs, it's Roschon Johnson. That dude's going to be a star. But Fields, super slippery. Khalil Herbert, talented in space. Roschon Johnson, I think, is going to be a star in this league at running back. All those guys can run the ball well. Just tackle them. Don't let them break off 7-8 yards at a time. Keep it to 3-4 yards at a time. If you get to that part, if you force Justin Fields into 3rd and 5 or longer, you're going to dominate the game defensively. So just tackle, fundamental football. That's how you're going to win on that side of the ball. And my first key, or second, I guess, I'm just going to refer to what Mitch Holthus said to us yesterday. Don't let their distractions be your distractions. Because while the Chiefs obviously are aware of what is going on at Hallis Hall, that does not affect them. That is a Bears problem. Now, the Bears are...
That's a them problem.
That's a them problem.
Not a you problem.
The Bears are a Chiefs problem, but the Bears' issues are a Bears problem. So don't let that be a distraction. Don't go into this game essentially blowing it off because it's the Bears and look what's going on. And they don't have a defensive coordinator and their coaches are all idiots and their quarterback can't throw. Don't worry about that stuff off the field. Worry about what you can control in this game. It's essentially a mindset point. Don't expect to go into this game like you're going to blow them out. Go into this game thinking we need to execute better than we executed the last 2 weeks. We need to build on the things that were working for us last week, the short yardage play calls, some of the reads for the wide receivers, things like that. Build on that. If you do that, you're going to win this game by multiple scores. Just don't let their distractions become your problem, and I think you're going to be just fine.
I did forget that Herbert transferred from KU and went to Virginia Tech.
Yeah,
I did.
That dipped out.
He did
the game.
He did the red shirt rule, man.
Little Irish goodbye mid-season.
Yeah, no. I believe, if I remember correctly, the first player to do that was Jalen McCleskey at Oklahoma State, who midweek was like, nah, I'm out. I'm redshirting and I'm out.
What about the cat from Clemson?
I think that was after the fact. I think that was after we realized, oh, shoot, you can do that? And then he did that.
I thought he did that. That was the one.
The quarterback?
Kelly Bryant.
Yeah, I thought Kelly Bryant. I thought that was the first one.
That was one of the earlier ones, yes. But those guys, I'm pretty sure, and Kelly Bryant, everyone kind of knew he was going to leave because you see this guy who's following him up. See this guy who's about to replace him.
By the way, that guy was Trevor Lawrence.
Khalil Herbert just didn't show up the day of a game, and then they found out, oh, he's not on our team anymore. They're like, hey, where is he? And he wasn't on the team anymore.
Can you imagine what David Beatty was going through right there?
No, that wasn't Dave. That was old Les.
It was Les.
That was a Les Miles thing.
Oh,
yeah?
Les doesn't know what's going on.
Yeah, he may have forgotten Khalil Herbert. He may have forgotten his name by the time
number 10?
kickoff.
Because when he number 10?
He might have been 10. Yeah.
Who's where's that number 10?
Yeah. Start talking about LSU and blonde women or something. Yeah.
Dan, what do you got for your keys?
All right. First key to Sunday for me for the Chiefs is just to limit penalties on offense, because I think that the Chiefs are not running into a defense that can really do much with them if the Chiefs don't stop themselves. And the biggest way that they've done that through 2 weeks has been penalties. Holding penalty on Donovan Smith each of the first 2 weeks. Juwan Taylor obviously had a miserable week too. I think some of the heat will be off of him in week 3. It feels like, okay, we've made our point with you. And I certainly think that Taylor will be much more mindful of where he's lined up. And I think being at home will help him time up the kick step a lot better. So I don't think we're going to have the pre-snap penalties, the pre-snap false starts that we saw from him on the road in week 2. So just no penalties. Limit the offensive penalties. Keep yourself on schedule. Give yourself a chance. Don't be 1st and 15. Don't be 2nd and 20. Stay ahead of the sticks. Stay on schedule offensively. And I don't think this is a defense that's going to be able to stop them for 60 minutes. So don't stop yourself. Limit the penalties on offense. Second key for me is this. I think it's tempting, and it may well be tempting to Steve Spagnuolo, who loves to dial up exotic pressures, bring 5, bring 6, loves to do that, loves to throw a lot of different blitz looks, particularly at young quarterbacks. But that's not the move against Justin Fields. Warren Sharp Football, had these stats after week 2. Against a 4-man rush, Justin Fields is 27 of 47 passing with 1 touchdown and 3 interceptions. The only quarterback worse against a 4-man rush is Zach Wilson. That's what we're talking about here. So you don't have to bring the noise to make Justin Fields play poorly. You just have to win with 4 and make him make decisions in the pocket, which clearly he's not very confident in his own ability to do right now, as he laid out for us.
It's the media, though, Dan.
Earlier this week. Yeah, the media is making something out of nothing. The media is making it a big deal that when directly asked, why are you playing so robotically? Why don't you feel like you're playing as well as you can play? Your first word out of your mouth, Justin Fields, was coaching.
Not great.
Is that what you want? But yeah, clearly there's not a lot of confidence for Fields as far as his decision-making process right now. And I don't see how that's probably improved over the course of this week. So make him make those decisions. Don't commit too many rushers. Don't put yourself in situations where Fields escapes the pocket, and now you got numbers down the field if you're the Bears, and those are the explosive plays that the Bears are going to need but haven't really created this year. Those are the explosives they're going to need to keep up, I think, with the Chiefs, provided the Chiefs follow my first key and limit the penalties on offense. So keep the blitz packages in your back pocket. Maybe show some stuff and bail out of it. Show some zone blitz looks and bail, and make Justin Fields beat you with his mind, with his decision making, because he's not a good decision maker. He's not an accurate passer. And I think the Bears' offensive line is weak enough that the Chiefs should be able to consistently get pressure with a four-man rush, with Chris Jones playing more snaps, with George Karlaftis playing really well through the first 2 weeks, with Felix Anudike-Uzomah winning some rush reps, Leo Chanel starting to flash as a pass rusher. The Chiefs should have plenty in their four-man rush packages to be able to confound Fields and the Bears' offense all game without blitzing.
I think the Chiefs are going to get the two worst quarterbacks that you could face in the NFL in back-to-back weeks.
They got the Jets next week?
Yeah.
I thought it was week 5 they had the Jets.
No, I think they got the Jets next week.
They have the Jets next week.
Yeah.
It is next week? Okay.
They play Justin Fields and then Zach Wilson.
Games
Back
on-
to back.
Dude, why is Chiefs Jets on Sunday Night Football?
Because
I know why.
Because
but
the Jets had Aaron Rodgers.
I know. Dude,
And
I don't want to.
you can't flex out the first 5 weeks of the year, but you can flex out the after that. I believe.
No,
I could be wrong.
Like, I know literally why. Just, God, like, I don't want to be up till 10:35 watching Zach Wilson play football.
Maybe Zach Wilson won't be the quarterback. Who's their backup?
Tim Boyle, the Laser Show.
Yeah. Put Timmy B back there.
By the way, you know things are going great for your team when you're the subject of a headline from famed satire website The Onion. This hit this morning. Matt Eberflus blames Justin Fields' struggles on incompetent coaching.
That's really good.
That's really funny.
It seems pretty clear to me that it's the coaching staff's fault, plain and simple, said Eberflus, adding that he had no idea what Bears coaches were thinking, but they were obviously wasting Fields' potential.
Okay, here's the thing about that, though. Coaches don't actually say that. Like, I've heard the head coach of my favorite NFL team before, Matt LaFleur, who I like, who I think is a very good coach. Every week, I swear to God, every week that Aaron Jones plays, there's a comment or a question from a reporter that says, why did he only get 12 touches in this game? And Matt LaFleur says, yeah, we got to get him more touches. Who, Matt? Who decides that? Who decides that? You dunce. You.
Well, maybe
Don't Beatty used to do that too. Well, we got to do this. You're the coach. You determine that. You have full control, Mr. Play Caller, over who gets the ball or who doesn't. You 100% control that.
Alrighty, prediction time. I would not wager on this game. If you would, what I would do is I would drop it lower than the 12.5. I would make this like
a teaser,
a 6.5 point spread. Save you that little 1-pointer.
Little 2-leg Wong teaser for all the real degenerates out there.
So
what are you pairing it with?
Well, I'd pair it with one of my picks coming up. Or you just put it as a money line and add just a smidge of a boost, but the money line's really not going to do a whole lot for you. But you could money line, the Chiefs and like the Cowboys and the Bills. Maybe the Bills, because the Bills play Washington. That might be a game. I'm trying to think. Who else are some big old spreads? Jacksonville.
Baltimore is playing the Colts without Anthony Richardson this week.
Yeah, so you could do like those 3 money line, then another game. But I like anywho.
You can actually bet. I've never seen this before. I'm on FanDuel right now. You can bet an alternate spread up to Chiefs minus 39.5. Usually it's like 8 points in either direction. I've never seen that.
What's the number?
Plus 1,700.
That's not even that good odds.
No, it's not.
No.
I got Chiefs 31, Bears 17.
Bears.
I got the Chiefs winning this one pretty comfortably. My big chief, don't know how good Nick Bolton, Willie Gay, but you want to know who I do like? Drew Tranquil. I think he's going to have a good game. I like Drew Tranquil in this game.
Mike Ditka versus a Hurricane. Who would win?
But the Hurricane's name is
Hurricane Ditka.
Ditka.
Oh. 40 years later, those sketches are still so
good. Bears 48, Giants -3.
Because if you ever, certainly if you're from Chicago, if you've ever been to the Midwest, you know people exactly like that.
1,000%.
No, that's just the town of Cicero. Like that's
you're from Chicago.
I was gonna say, like I can call people right now. I pick up my phone and be like, hey.
Yeah, it's just Fack from the Bear. It's just him.
The one where they do Michael
Ditkas,
where they start talking about the bowls. They go, Michael Jordan will only score 200 points. The record's 100. Was. I got Chiefs big in this one. Chiefs 34, Bears 13. Like logically, what are the Bears going to do in this game? Like all this
muddy it up.
I am generally not this game is controlled solely by one team kind of game prognosticator. Like I think football is more complex than that. The Bears are so god awful, and the Chiefs have such a better roster and better coaching. This feels like a game where the Chiefs are going to dictate how this game goes. I think they come out tuned up. They're back at home. Chiefs 34, Bears 13.
From the text line, Ditka by 50 in overtime. You win by 50 in overtime. Love it.
Oh, it's funny.
Love it.
I'm not sure any piece of media next to the Blues Brothers has ever encapsulated like the meathead Chicagoan more than those sketches.
It's true.
It really is.
Oh, what does that make? That makes a baker's dozen. Just having a heart attack over here, guys.
No, I'm choking.
Got the knockwurst going down sideways.
Oh my God. What do you got, Dan? What's your prediction?
Chiefs
Pain.
Chiefs 30-13. I think they start fast and kind of throttle down in the second half. When we did our kind of look back at games where the Chiefs are favored by this much, you see that they kick a lot of red zone field goals. Like they'll just take points against the team. I think there's going to be a lot of that. I think they'll jump out pretty early, kick a few field goals, get out to 30 points, and the Bears I don't think can hang. Again, this is a game that feels like a get right opportunity for the Chiefs. I think they're going to take that very seriously at home and have no problem with the Bears. My big chief is Derrick McKinnon, by the way, with Isaiah Pacheco nursing the thigh, with the Bears defense being what it is. I expect Derrick McKinnon to get quite a few touches and have his best game of the season so far.
Yeah, Kelsey for me. I think week 2, back in the swing of things, terrible defense. Kelsey.
I agree with a friend of the show, Seth Kaiser. He doesn't want Tony to be hurt, but if Tony doesn't go, put Rice in there.
Yeah.
See what Rashee Rice can do.
I agree.
Like, see what he can do. That's what I think would be fun. Coming up next, we also, I forgot to mention this at the top of the hour. I, in my possession right now, have 4. That's right. 4. A family 4-pack.
Whoa.
Of K-State. We're talking K-State.
Bring your power towel to every game.
Tickets to UCF tomorrow.
Bring your poncho to this game. 30% chance of showers at night.
So that's just what happens when UCF comes to town, huh?
Yeah.
UCF.
Ugly weather.
UCF, K-State. I got a family 4-pack of tickets. We're going to give those away to start. We'll give those away right at the top, near the top of the 3 o'clock hour.
Okay.
So be listening here in about 20 minutes or so. We're going to give these away. Family 4-pack. K-State versus UCF.
The Knights.
The Knights.
They should go back to their old name, by the way. They should go back to being the Citronauts.
No, I don't even know what that means.
Like citrus and astronauts. The Citronauts.
That's ridiculous. I'm glad they changed.
To Knights. Oh, yeah. Very, very, real good name.
Citronauts isn't even a thing.
So? Who cares?
True. Jayhawks isn't even a real thing.
I mean, how many birds do you know that wear shoes? I mean,
Hey, low key, I love the Jayhawk logo. I
I
think the
do
Jayhawk
too.
logo is one of the coolest logos out
I think
there.
so too.
For real. It's a good logo.
Have you ever seen the Citronaut logo?
No, I don't. You're going to show me.
I am going to show you.
Coming up next, we will try to change one another's minds. Don't try to say that they need to change their name because that's
I burned this up too early.
Stupid name. And then we'll go around the NFL. There are 2 monster games that we're going to get to coming up here on 580 Sports. All right, it's time for an edition of Change My Mind. And I'm going to tell you, this is one of the hills I will die on. And you can try to change my mind. But like running option to the short side of the field, it ain't going to help. Change my mind.
That's only if you don't know how to run it well.
Every single college football game should kick off at 1 o'clock.
I cannot imagine. Well, no, it's bad for viewers. That's the reason why it's bad for viewership. Like it, as a consumer of the football product, it is far worse. I can't possibly watch every game that way.
Okay, let's.
Now,
I disagree with you on that one because I just want to watch my team. But
well, that's where we differ.
As a player, change my mind.
That's a null set. I didn't play.
Now, I would think it would be a bummer to not get to play under the lights.
Man, I hated playing night games. Kickoff 1 o'clock, baby.
Now, as a media member, I would prefer every game start at 11 o'clock. Like KU plays at 2:30. Awesome. Midday window, ESPN, big audience. Nah, dude, that ruins my whole day. I'm going to miss the second half of the early games. I'm not going to get home till the second half of the late games. I don't even live far. So as a media member who covers games, earlier the better. But as a consumer only, I want to spread out. I want them to stagger it even more. I want like a wave of games to start every hour on the hour.
Yeah, as a viewer, I wouldn't want them all played at the same time.
1 o'clock.
I'm tempted.
Football should be played at 1 o'clock.
Why not noon?
Noon, fine. Noon 1, 2. That's about it. That's the window. Noon to 2.
One of these days, I'm going to use the YouTube TV multi-view feature on all 3 of my TVs at once and try to get 12 games going at the same time and try not to stroke out.
The reason why night games suck is because as a player, you sit there for an entire day. It's annoying.
Maybe you should get some work in.
You don't want to get tired before the game.
But if you studied, watch other games.
I thought you meant
if
study.
you went to Iowa State, maybe you're gambling.
I thought you were studying. I was like, nerd. You meant like no. You want to get to play like 1 o'clock games, baby.
Don't you get to sleep in a little bit then?
What for 1 o'clock games?
No, if it's a later game.
No, because I hated it because you wake up early because you're excited. It's game day. 1 o'clock, man.
Maybe you just needed some emotional regulation.
Yeah.
No, I
maybe
just
you needed to chill out.
No, 1 o'clock.
No, I get it from a player perspective. You want to get out there. I get that.
Play.
I get that.
11 o'clock's too early. Body clocks. I'll never forget that David Shaw. He lost to Purdue, if I'm not mistaken.
Don't they play Purdue again this week? No, that's Wisconsin plays Purdue.
Purdue.
Yeah. Change my mind. I'm done. Summer's over. Like I need colder weather.
Literally true. Today is the last day of summer.
Yeah.
Well,
literally
yes,
correct.
But okay, poorly phrased. I will own that one. But like, it's supposed to be in the 80s again for the next several days.
No, I'm okay with that. Team 80s.
Nah, man, it needs to be quarter zip season.
Yeah, I love summer. I love summer more than I've discovered a lot of people like summer. Like it's 105 4 days in a row. That's fine.
Yeah,
no, that sucks too.
110 4 days in a row. Okay, now it's a little bit of a stretch. But the next several days, I've got the forecast in front of me right now. Well, it's loading right now. But I checked this. Yeah. 87,
Perfect.
90,
Even
82,
better.
85,
Yes.
84. Dog, it's about to be October.
Yes.
That's what the summer should be. I'm ready for like days in the mid 50s, low 60s, like a chill in the air, a little bit of a morning drizzle, hoodie and jeans weather, quarter zip season. No. Like I need that. I need
right now,
fall.
This is football weather.
I miss
here, baby.
fall. When like fall, we was like
pampered
2.5 months
football
instead
weather.
of like 2 weeks.
Awful.
We get like 2 weeks of fall and 2 weeks of spring anymore.
Yeah. They invented football, American football, in the Rust Belt because you're supposed to play in fall Rust Belt weather.
85 degrees and sunny. Yeah.
Pampered.
No, I just like it to be hot.
Weak. It's cold.
No, if anything, I'm tough. I'm playing in this kind of heat. I'm tough. I'm willing to take it.
You just need to hydrate. Yeah. Takes toughness playing the winter.
Change my mind. A team with 3 losses will play for 3 league losses will play for the Big 12 championship.
Yeah, I think Texas. There's no way Texas is losing 3 games, and I don't think Oklahoma will. I don't even know.
How do we know Oklahoma's good? Can you tell me why we know Oklahoma is good through 3 games? Because they dropped a nuke on Tulsa?
I think that they're going to be good because I think they've got good players, and I think Venables learned. Also, their schedule, as I pointed, that's the reason why I picked them to go to the title game, is Cake City, and I don't think they're going to lose 3 games, and especially now that Oklahoma State is absolute cheeks. I thought that might have been a game because of old Bedlam. That's not going to happen. What else is their schedule? Let me pull up their
Looking at their schedule, I would say, and because I agree with you, Dan, because I'm not a Dylan Gabriel guy. I'm not. And I'm not sold that Oklahoma is like in the same zip code as even Texas this year. But looking at their schedule, I would say there are 4 games to me that I would consider losable. Not that they will be underdogs, not that they will lose them, but 4 games that I would say they could lose these. And I think
I see 2.
I think Texas, UCF, KU, and BYU. Those are the games they could, with a reasonable argument, lose. I think at home they'll beat TCU. I think they'll smoke West Virginia. Oklahoma State is god-awful, plus it's Bedlam. They always win. Cincinnati's no good, even on the road for Oklahoma, and Iowa State's no good.
Yeah.
But I think those other 4 games, you could make an argument they could lose them. But I have a hard time seeing both OU and K-State losing 3 games apiece in conference play.
I think there's going to be multiple teams that have just 2 losses.
I was just putting that out there because I think that the Big 12's perception first 3 weeks has taken a hit, and I think that's deserved. I think there have been some pretty bad losses that the league has suffered to this point. And outside of Texas, I don't see the team that's necessarily going to go 8-1. So, all it takes is, one score loss on the road where you turn it over 3 times and, college football stuff to happen for like 3 or 4 teams be sitting there 6-3 behind 8-1 or 7-2 Texas.
If Oklahoma had to play K-State, I might say you're right.
Chris Kleiman owns Oklahoma.
Golly, they finished KU, Oklahoma State, West Virginia, BYU, TCU. I don't even know if BYU will be hard because it's on the road. Like, that's a legit tough game. But Oklahoma State, West Virginia, TCU, 3 of their 4. I don't think TCU is that great. Man, I'm still so mad that the Big 12 gave the Sooners a cakewalk their final year. That's a bummer. Coming up next, and the fact that K-State is not playing Oklahoma this year, that might grind my gears more than anything. Who does KU not play? The KU plays pretty much everybody, right?
Yeah, KU got a
KU's
draw.
got a very tough schedule. Yes, correct.
We don't get West Virginia.
You play Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, K-State, Texas. Yeah, you get all the tough teams.
Don't play West Virginia. Don't play
TCU.
Houston.
No, you play TCU. No, that's Iowa State.
And don't play
What the hell am I
TCU.
looking at? Yeah, I was looking at the wrong schedule. Coming up next, we'll go around the NFL. There are 2 teams and I think 3 games that are a huge deal. Coming up, we'll break all down. Coming up next. The NFL weekend, low-key, has some monster games occurring. And 2 of them involve the AFC West. I think the biggest game of the weekend involves 2 teams that I believe we all predicted to make the playoffs. I'd have to go back and double check. But they both are 0-2. And we know that if they go 0-3, what can happen? The biggest game of the weekend is Chargers and Vikings. The Chargers are 0-2. The Vikings are 0-2. That is a huge game.
Yeah, this is a
big game.
0-2 versus 0-2, Chargers versus Vikings is an all-time matchup of maybe the 2 most snake-bitten teams in NFL history. The teams that just have never been able to get out of their own way more than anyone else.
But also have had talent.
Yes.
Like the Lions have never had talent.
Yeah, well,
outside of Barry Sanders.
That's why I say snake-bitten.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, like
okay.
A Lions-Browns toilet bowl, like those are just 2 pathetic franchises.
Yeah, those franchises make their own problems.
Yeah. But like the Chargers have been to only 1 Super Bowl. They've had a lot of, if not Hall of Famers, but a lot of star, well-known players, well-known coaches, winning seasons.
You can argue they've probably had 20 teams in their history better than the one that did go to the Super Bowl in 1994.
That's probably true.
Stan Humphries was the quarterback of that team.
The the Marlon McCree year, they should have gone to the Super Bowl that year. Was that 06?
It was, I think so. 05 or 06.
Around there.
Was that Natron Means? Was the
Natron Means in 1994?
Yeah.
Natron Means.
Refried Means.
He was a beast.
Whereas the Vikings, probably even more than the Chargers, just cannot get out of their own way. The best team in Minnesota Vikings history had to rely on the greatest field goal kicker in team history to make precisely one kick, and they probably go to the Super Bowl. They have a good chance to beat the Broncos. Instead, he misses it. They lose. They don't even make the Super Bowl.
Oh, and by the way, that was the only kick he missed the entire season.
Yeah. And they had some just like Fran Tarkington and the Purple People Eaters.
Shout out to the SB Nation Secret Base Dorktown 7.5 hour documentary, The History of the Minnesota Vikings, that tells all of these stories and more. And it's a good watch. You would enjoy it.
They've had so many good players back then, because they were 0-4 in Super Bowls, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, I went to 4 the first 9, or the first 10, good. Something like that.
Yeah,
but and the Chargers still have to play the Chiefs twice. The Chargers have to have they still got a tough schedule to go. It depends. I don't know if Staley's going to make it out of this first month. Like, let's say the Chargers lose this game to the Vikings, okay? And then they lose to the Raiders. They're going to be 0-4. And then their next 2 games are the Cowboys and the Chiefs. Staley's gone. Like, he's like, this is such a big game.
Yeah,
me.
they're going to.
This is a huge. They have to. This one and the Raider game, they almost have to win because the odds of them beating the Chiefs and the Cowboys are not great, considering that game is a home game for the Chiefs.
Because
that's 1-5.
Because they've already paid the quarterback, right?
Yeah.
So they've decided that we have the quarterback that should be winning more of these games. They've made up their mind on Justin Herbert.
Mm-hmm.
So if they do go out and get beat in what I expect to be a like pinball machine kind of football game against the Vikings, that's going to be offense on offense in that game. They're going to put Brandon Staley in front of the Bobs and ask him, what is it you say you do here? Like, what value is Brandon Staley bringing to the Chargers at this point?
That's a great Office Space line for those of you who don't know.
I'm glad you like it.
That was Dr. Cox, by the way. He will always be Perry Cox. I don't even know his real name, but he's Perry Cox. The other big game.
He's been in so much.
Yes, he's a certified that guy.
Yeah.
Not on the level of like Christopher Walken, but close.
Well, see, I think Christopher Walken's like a big enough. Like, you see him in a movie and you say, "Oh, it's Christopher Walken."
Yeah.
You see
he's in
Dr. Cox in a movie, you go, "Oh, that's the guy who played Dr. Cox."
That guy.
Yeah,
that's
that
guy.
John C. McGinley, by the way.
Yeah.
That guy has a name.
He's been in a million things.
Yeah. Dr. Perry Cox is one of the best characters out there. Fantastic.
Yeah, he was great in that role.
The other big game for both teams, it doesn't happen until Monday night. And maybe I shouldn't mention it and we can talk about it Monday, but this is the second game for me. It's Bengals-Rams, because the Rams win this thing, they're 2-1. That's a good start for the Rams. The Bengals are 0-2. And I don't know if you guys saw the video of Joe Burrow on a cart talking with the owner of the Bengals. They were driving. He was driving in the cart, seating shotgun in the golf cart right next to the owner. And they're driving around. And then as Joe Burrow gets out of the car, I'm not a body language expert, but I do kind of know what it does look like. That is almost a, hey, bud, we're not playing you this game because you just signed a monster deal and we're going to give you 1 week to relax maybe. I would not be stunned if Joe Burrow does not play on Sunday or on Monday night. That did not look as if. Why is the star quarterback who just signed a $250 million deal riding shotgun in a golf cart, and then he gets out and he's shaking his head?
I mean, I've been telling Dan all week, I do not. If he can't go, they should put him on IR.
If they put him on IR, their season's over.
It is, and that's tough.
And that's why I think that what they'll do is, I think if he doesn't go on Monday, then I think that they will try to play him after that. They'll give him this week and next week, and then he'll play just on no practice against the Titans, and then see what happens there. But those are my 2 big games for the week. What do you guys got?
Yeah, I think both of those have a lot of intrigue to them. this is like a really gross thing to say, and I'm almost embarrassed to say it out loud. I'm kind of interested to see what Pittsburgh does on Sunday Night Football against the Raiders. Because if they struggle in that game, it's over. Like it ain't happening for Pittsburgh this year. Also, like Matt Canada should be like, I don't know. I don't want to demean anyone's profession saying what he should be doing, but he should not be.
Should they
coaching
send
football.
him to Canada?
Yeah, or Siberia, maybe, in a Siberian prison. I mean, it's
maybe Guantanamo Bay.
Well,
If you
wow,
listen
that's
to
a bit
Steelers
strong.
fans would like that option. I think they'd lean or option C.
I think in college football, more than the pros, we see guys who bounce. We were just talking about Tim Beck earlier today, who'd been at Ohio State, Nebraska, handful of Texas for a while.
KU, wasn't he? Tim Beck
he might have
KU?
briefly been at
I'm
KU.
like 64% sure that Tim Beck was at KU.
I think you are right about that, Jake. He was a wide receiver.
Yeah.
Wide receivers coach 05 through 07.
Yeah. I thought that was Tim Beck. Yeah.
So, yeah, he was there. He's now the offensive coordinator. He actually went to K-State. You know that?
I did not.
I just learned that literally right now. He's currently the offensive coordinator at Coastal Carolina. He has broken that offense. Grayson McCall went from maybe the most exciting quarterback in the country to bum in one offseason.
Coaching matters.
In college football, you see that a lot. Like, how does this guy keep getting jobs? Jerry Kill has worked for 80 schools.
Lombardi.
He's a good coach. Oh, my God, Joe Lombardi. Lombardi and
Correct. Denver Broncos offensive coordinator Joe Lombardi
and Matt Canada are the two NFL examples of, like, how is this dude employed? How has anyone given him a job? No, I just called more jet motion. More jet motion.
I do love.
There's the jet motion.
But I do love a good jet motion.
It's fine when it has purpose. He's
Look,
just sending them willy-nilly for no reason.
Jet motion looks cool, though.
You know what Steelers Raiders on Sunday Night Football is? That's me turning to Abby and saying, well, the Chiefs game is over, babe. You want to put suits on? Want to watch Suits?
Now, what's Harvey going to be doing?
We're 4 episodes in. I think we're fairly hooked.
It's
I think
not bad. It's not
It's
bad.
a good show.
Saints and Packers, I think, will be interesting, too. That's the biggest test. That might be the biggest test Jordan Love has all year.
2 games I've got my eye on this week. Bills Commanders. Let's see if the Commanders are really good or if they just benefited from playing 2 kind of stinky teams defensively the first 2 weeks. Weather in that game going to suck.
Well, all the weather on
all
the
the East Coast games.
be careful
tropical
for that.
storms coming in and going to have an impact there. But I really think the Bills are going to beat them up. I think the Commanders are punching above their weight. Other game that's fascinating to me, Denver on the road at Miami. I think Miami's offense is legitimately good. Russell Wilson is playing well by the numbers. They're also 0-2 with 2-1 score losses. It's kind of a must-win desperation situation for Sean Payton's team.
Yes, correct.
It may not be the same for Miami. That would be a big, big win for Denver and proof of concept that their offense is actually improving if they can go to Miami and go toe-to-toe.
Is the weather supposed to be bad in Miami, or is that the tropical storm that's already passed? Is it already past that spot?
I think mostly it's going to be the Northeast that catches.
It's going to be the Washington, Baltimore.
Up there. Yeah,
not quite.
Yeah,
it is
not. It is not really a threat. To
I don't think the
Florida,
Jags in Miami will be a factor.
Tropical storm Ophelia impacting the Mid-Atlantic, according to weather.gov. Okay.
Yeah. So
those are 2 games for me that I'm kind of fascinated by to see if the Commanders are really this good, to see if the Broncos are really this bad, because some of the numbers say that their offense, at least, is actually not bad at all. That Russell Wilson is kind of back to what he did well in Seattle. The problem is that he's not the athlete he was in Seattle. So the bad stuff is being exacerbated. He's taking more sacks than any other quarterback in the league. And if you thought that wouldn't happen, you should have listened to me 2 years ago when I said exactly that was going to happen as soon as he got old.
Fun game. Last one that we'll get to. Falcons-Lions. That'll be kind of a fun one. That one is basically a pick'em, 3-point spread for Detroit at home. But that's a big one for those 2 franchises. Falcons start out 3-0, and the Lions 1-2. If they lose, that's a big one. Falcons-Lions. Big game.
Falcon up. Rise up.
Exactly.
They could win that game.
1,000%. We don't know about Detroit. Coming up, we're going to talk plenty of KU and K-State. We will be giving away some tickets coming up here in just a little bit. Also, Mitch Harper of BYU coming up here on 580 Sports Talk. 580 Sports Talk, hour number 2. Thank you so much for joining us. Jake LeBon, Brendan Dworzinski, Dan Lucero with you. Leading into what should be a terrific high school football game coming up this evening on our sister station, Class Country 106.9, KTPK. Washburn Rural taking on Manhattan.
One of the
super pumped for this.
Yeah, one of the biggest matchups in the entire state this week. One of the biggest matchups in Class 6A all year. So we're looking forward to that. 6:45 kickoff, 7 o'clock.
Should be a good one.
Sorry, 7 o'clock kickoff, 6:45 pregame on the Big Country 106.9. That's not what it's called. Country 106.9.
Country Legends 106.9.
Yeah, it's 106.9.
It's classic Country 106.9. Yeah, Country Legends like 2 brands ago. Jar for all of us.
Yeah, 106.9 tonight. That's really listen to Washburn Rural Manhattan.
I
listen to nothing else but that.
I was right because Washburn's been on Classic Country 106.9 for quite some time. But yes, that's what we've got. Coming up, we will be giving away the K-State versus UCF tickets. We got a family 4-pack. So be listening this hour. You have a chance to go to the Bill to watch UCF take on the Kansas State Wildcats. So we got lots to get to. We're going to talk with Matt Derrick on all things Chiefs, our Chiefs insider coming up at the bottom of this hour. But right now, it is going to be 2 undefeated teams squaring off against each other at 2:30 at the David Booth Memorial Stadium. It is BYU versus KU. And to talk all things BYU and the Cougars, we bring in Mitch Harper, the BYU insider for KSL Sports in Utah and Salt Lake. Mitch, how are you doing on this Friday?
Guys, Jake, Brandon, Dan, a touchdown in Kansas City, first time here in town, and it's going to be a big game. I'm excited. A bunch of firsts, and for me individually, but also these teams squaring off and BYU going into their first Big 12 game.
So how is this? How are fans excited for this first ever Big 12 game? Big win against Arkansas. I would imagine this has been as excited for a game in quite some time for BYU.
No question. I mean, BYU fans, this is what they've been dreaming of for decades, being in a league and being in this type of conference where it's a power conference. And there's been a 2-year ramp up to this moment, getting the invite to the Big 12, and BYU has done a lot of, adding additional staff, adding additional, retooling the roster through the transfer portal. But fans are very excited because even though BYU comes in 3-0, there's still this feeling of what do we truly know about this BYU team? Because last week against Arkansas, had it not been for the, beneficial field position that was just leaning heavily in favor of BYU and the turnover margin, BYU didn't play that great, and they still came away with a win in SEC country against Arkansas. But, man, BYU fans are thrilled. Expect a nice showing from BYU fans tomorrow at the booth, and it'll be a fun atmosphere. I think it's going to be a really entertaining game.
What is it like for BYU fans? Are they do they travel? What is it like for BYU fans?
They always have good showings. I mean, I see this team up close, and they've gone coast to coast during their past 12 years as a football independent, and they would go in the paths that you probably wouldn't expect many fans, like Statesboro, Georgia, to play Georgia Southern. They got 8,000 fans there at a Georgia Southern game in the middle of November. I mean, BYU, they bring fans. Now, not all of it's coming from Provo. A lot of it's coming from bordering states. I bet a lot of fans tomorrow will be from Texas and maybe Oklahoma here in the Midwest. There will be a lot in these bordering states of Kansas, but there's also a good number that come from Provo as well. It's a loyal fan base. I think it's one of the big reasons that Bob Bowlesby, when he made the invite to BYU, I remember talking to Bob about this, and he just was so impressed with the BYU fan base and thought they had endless potential by joining one of these leagues. And he saw the kind of a vision that BYU could add value to this Big 12 conference. BYU now has the challenge of coming in and trying to, show their worth in this league, and it all starts tomorrow.
Mitch Harper is our guest, the BYU Cougars insider for KSL Sports in Salt Lake City, joining us here on 580 Sports Talk as we preview KU versus BYU coming up tomorrow. Mitch, the transfer portal has obviously been a big deal for this program. You were just mentioning that a moment ago. And that includes at quarterback. There have been some really dang good quarterbacks that have come through BYU the last couple of years. Obviously, Zach Wilson had incredible fanfare, put up huge numbers when he was at BYU. Jaron Hall the last couple of years, I was a huge fan of his game. And now it's Keaton Slovis, who is well-traveled, obviously started at USC, spent last year at Pitt as well. Now at BYU, how has he settled into this program? How much of a natural fit has he been? And what have you seen out of Slovis so far through his first 3 starts with BYU?
He fits a lot better with BYU than I ever expected he would when he committed to BYU last winter. Because like many, they probably think Keaton Slovis is at BYU. It just seems weird, a former USC and Pitt guy ending up in Provo. But he's really embraced it. And, he's become a leader of this team, and everything about, BYU he's leaned into. Now, on the field, it's been a mixed bag. I thought that last week when given the short field, he capitalized and they were clutch. But the deep ball, which has been kind of the bread and butter for BYU with those quarterbacks you mentioned, Zach Wilson, Jaron Hall, been a little bit hit and miss so far. He's only completed 4 deep passes beyond 20 yards this season. And so that's got to be an area they got to improve. He feels coming into this game, they've yet to have a complete game offensively. And I tend to agree because his best performance came against an FCS team. And what can you really size up from that in week 2? So it's still kind of the jury's still out as far as Slovis on the field. Off the field, though, I think fans have embraced him. He's embraced BYU. He feels like he's been someone that's been at BYU for years, and that's kind of been a fun story to follow this season.
How does BYU stack up in the trenches? Because that's been the big story for KU going into this year, specifically when it comes to the Kansas defense. There was a lot of, are they going to be able to hang with some of the bigger, stronger teams that they're going to face? Because that was a major struggle for the Jayhawks last year, and KU showed out well against Illinois 2 weeks ago. This has been considered, I know, by our program and by a lot of people around the KU program, this has been the next big test for KU up front. So what does that offensive front look like for BYU? The strength, the size, and at this point, the execution of that offensive line?
To this point, execution-wise, it's been underperforming. I think a lot of people coming into the season thought this was going to be the best offensive line ever at BYU. And there's been some good O-lines over the decades with this BYU football program. But, there was so much experience, so much talent, and it's just kind of been underwhelming, especially at right tackle. Caleb Etienne came in from Oklahoma State. He left in the springtime in Stillwater. Mike Gundy was like, he just left because he lost his job. And people out in Provo kind of thought, it's, a little bit of sour grapes. Gundy's just saying that because he lost the starter. But, Etienne's one of the lowest graded offensive tackles by Pro Football Focus so far. And there were times last week against Arkansas where he was brilliant and he was a lockdown tackle. But then there were other times where he's just making costly miscues that, gave up 3 sacks last week to the Hogs. So he's an area of focus on that right side. The left tackle position, Kingsley Suamataia, he's outstanding. Now, sometimes there's questions about the effort at times, but when he is engaged, Kingsley is one of the best tackles in college football. That's why a lot of people project him maybe as the first-round NFL draft pick this year. The interior of the line's solid. Connor Pay, Paul Miley comes in from Utah center, and then Waylon Lavoie, who had 13 starts at Utah State. It's a good group, and I think there's just still this been feeling that they should be better than what they've been. There's a lot of size, though. All of them across the board, at least 305, and they are tall, they're big, and they just don't explode the line of scrimmage run blocking. They're very good in pass protection. Run blocking, though, they struggled, and I think that's why you saw last week only 2.7 yards per carry against Arkansas. That number's got to improve this week as BYU looks to have more balance.
Mitch Harper, who covers BYU for KSL Sports in Salt Lake City, joining us here on 580 Sports Talk to break down KU versus BYU coming up tomorrow, 2:30 kickoff at David Booth, Kansas Memorial Stadium. I'm sure you have read a bunch about this storyline, and I know KU fans in particular are really interested in one specific wide receiver versus defensive back matchup. The brothers going head-to-head in this game, Mitch. Quentin Lassiter for KU, and when I tell you the Lassiter family means as much to the KU program as maybe any football family, it is the truth. Kwame, dad, was a standout for the program, played a long time in the NFL. Kwame II was with KU for 6 years. He's now with the Bengals. He meant a lot to this program, and Quentin has had a tremendous start to the year as well. And brother Darius plays for BYU. So give us a little bit of a scouting report on the one Lassiter brother, one Lassiter family member who isn't a Jayhawk.
it is a fun storyline. I was actually just kind of this week went into the KSL archive and watched the '92 Aloha Bowl and seeing Kwame Lassiter. He was the leading tackler in that game. Had a pick on Steve Young's brother, who was the quarterback in that game, Tom Young. So it was just kind of fun to look back, and it's clearly just hearing that from what you were saying. I mean, it does sound like the Lassiter family does mean a lot to the Jayhawks. But Darius, though, he comes in from Eastern Michigan. He's more of a possession receiver for BYU. Ideally, he's about wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3, but he's been solid. He's a guy that can go over the middle, and he's been great with his hand with securing passes, and has not had any drops this season. So, and I think he's also brought in a lot of maturity too to the wide receiver unit. He committed to BYU last May when they were kind of experiencing some upheaval. Cody Epps, for a moment there, he was in the transfer portal. He was expected to be wide receiver 1 for BYU. That's been a slow start as he's dealt with a hamstring. Played a little bit last week, going to play tomorrow, but still not full strength. So Lassiter's been elevated a bit, and he's done a nice job. But I don't think he's this, necessarily a star focal point of the offense, but he's one of the many pass catchers that Slovis turns to in this offense. I think the number one guy, though, in the pass catching department for BYU is Isaac Rex, the tight end. Keaton Slovis and him have had a strong connection that played out in spring ball and carried over into fall camp, and it's showing in the game. Last week had 8 targets, 4 catches. Isaac Rex is one to watch, but Lassiter, I'm very excited to see, if those two actually do line up, Quentin and Darius, because I just think that'd be pretty cool, and see how competitive they get in that moment if they line up against each other.
Our guest is Mitch Harper. He covers BYU athletics for KSLSports.com and hosts the Cougar Tracks podcast. If you want some more inside info on BYU sports, you can find him on Twitter at Mitch_Harper. And he joins us here in the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline on 580 Sports Talk. Mitch, Jalen Daniels, preseason Big 12 player of the year, offensive player of the year at quarterback. Another mobile quarterback challenge for this BYU defense. Had to handle KJ Jefferson last week for Arkansas. Daniels a little bit different, not quite as big, but how will BYU adjust to the challenge of facing a dual threat quarterback, and which players on that defense are going to be most important in that matchup?
Well, I think they're going to hope that they can still have success up front with their defensive line, bringing a 4-man rush. That was quite the turn of events for BYU last week. I mean, if you saw BYU at all last year, they were one of the worst defenses in all of college football a season ago. They hung their hat on drop 8. There was no pressure ever. It was just a bad defense. And Jay Hill, the new defensive coordinator, has come in and really overnight kind of changed the belief and just the fortunes of this defense. And the defensive line has been a pleasant surprise thus far. So that's going to be a key area. They're going to be a fire blitz team where they're going to bring some guys. There's going to be some time where they're bringing the cornerback Eddie Heckard, who's a standout. He played for Jay Hill at Weber State, was an FCS All-American. He had a big play last week against Arkansas. Number 5 for BYU. He's one to watch for. Keep an eye out for Tyler Batty, the defensive end, defending defensive player of the week in the Big 12. Had 9 tackles last week, a forced fumble, a fumble recovery. He's been in the program for about 4 years now. Kalani Sitake, identified him when he was a young high school kid, has always believed he could be a star, pass rusher for BYU. BYU hasn't had a double-digit sack artist since 2015. That was when Bronco Mendenhall was the head coach. So it's just BYU generating a pass rush is kind of a new concept as in the Kalani Sitake era. So there's a little bit of energy and excitement, and Jay Hill has brought that in droves. And so now that's going to be the challenge for BYU, because if they can get that 4-man rush, you think, they're still going to have that back end of the defense with guys like Heckard, Jacob Robinson, who's got 2 interceptions like Quentin Lassiter does. I think that, BYU feels like that's going to be the key, is that defensive line getting that push up front.
BYU is a significant underdog in this game. The line has actually moved towards Kansas as the week has gone on. Most places it's 9 points, 9.5 points. That's a pretty big spread. That means the expectation is that Kansas is going to find a way to win this game on Saturday. But BYU was a pretty big underdog at Arkansas last week, and they found a way to win that game too. So if BYU can, for a second straight week, pull off an upset, how would that reorient the expectations, not just for this season, but for maybe a program that took a bit of an unexpected step back last year for Kalani Sitake and didn't maybe deliver on some of the preseason promise that last year's roster had. How big would a second straight win on the road as an underdog be for the short and for the long term of this program?
It's a good question because I think short term, you could maybe draw up a scenario where BYU is maybe starting out 7-0 potentially, because after this week, you got Cincinnati on a short week at home on a Friday night. Then you got to bye. TCU had that nice win, last week at Houston, but still, I think defensively, there's opportunities there to attack TCU. And then Texas Tech, kind of stumbled out of the gates early. I mean, there's a lot to get ahead of, but I think that would get BYU feeling like, they do belong in this power Big 12. I think they've always felt that they've always meant to be in a power league, but just to have that instant result, that instant success against the Kansas team that I think is very good. And I think that BYU wants to, I think there's a lot of similarities between these two programs, how they believe in their cultures. They're going to be very gritty. And I think also they want to have an offense that's as potent as Kansas eventually in this conference. So it would be a huge win for BYU. There's no doubt about it, because you look at it and I just think that long term, it's something that you could sell in recruiting and also the transfer portal, because BYU has had success in the portal. You'll see a lot of guys tomorrow that are key difference makers that came from the portal. AJ Vong-Pachon at linebacker number 10. Because BYU has to come up with creative ways to fill the roster. They're not going to get the heralded blue chips because they're a faith-based institution. So you're going to go through other means. And I think that you can kind of add some legitimacy. Like, you belong in this power conference, and that could give us momentum in the recruiting trails and going forward in the future.
Just a couple more questions for Mitch Harper, who covers the BYU Cougars for KSL Sports and KSLSports.com in Salt Lake City, joining us here on 580 Sports Talk. KU versus BYU coming up tomorrow afternoon in Lawrence. Not as much an on the field this year question, Mitch, but big picture for the BYU program. Kalani Sitake, I know both Dan and I, big fans of Kalani Sitake, what he has done there and the culture that has been, it started a lot with Bronco Mendenhall, but has been continued now with Sitake over the last several years. Do you feel like he is a BYU lifer? Because it's become with the, SEC and Big Ten becoming the power two, if you will, over the realignment wave of the last couple of years, that guys like Lance Leipold at Kansas or Chris Kleiman at Kansas State are now always going to be candidates for, well, if a Big Ten team wants someone to fill their job, they'll go to a Big 12 school to find them. Or if an SEC team needs to find someone to fill a job, they might go to the Big 12 to find those guys. Do you feel like Sitake, whether or not his name pops up in some of those discussions, is a guy who likely would take a bigger job, or does he feel like someone who is that deeply entrenched with BYU?
I think the latter. I think he's deeply entrenched with BYU. I think he wants to be at BYU for life. I think that, he's someone that, takes great pride in being the first, BYU head football coach to lead the program into a power conference. And, he is a BYU guy through and through. There was a moment in 2021 coaching cycle where, he interviewed with Oregon, and there were some rumblings with Arizona State. But I just think the way that Kalani, instills his culture and his approach, I think it only works at BYU what he does. He's cut his teeth in places like Utah, and he had a brief stint at Oregon State. But I just think Kalani is a perfect fit in Provo. But the thing is, I will say, is that sometimes for him, I don't think fans and maybe sometimes boosters haven't always appreciated him as much as maybe they should, because they always feel like there's a little bit of this feeling of, if BYU goes south, they're ready to say, pull the plug. Kalani's not as good of a coach. There was in 2019 when he was navigating some struggles, there was a strong majority that wanted him gone. They thought that he should no longer be the head coach at BYU, which I thought was just crazy, because he's really the perfect fit. And when you're still a school that requires your head coach to be an active member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and be an upstanding member, that pool is going to be limited. You can't just go and do a national search when you got those sort of stipulations. So I just think Kalani's the perfect man for the job. I think sometimes he gets taken for granted a bit by BYU, but when push comes to shove, there's no one better for the job, and I think he's willing to stay at BYU. He's got a young baby now, only 1 year old. I mean, him and his wife had an unexpected baby, so I got to imagine they want to stay in Provo. So I think Kalani's here to stay for BYU. As long as they keep winning, he'll definitely, I think be staying.
All right, last two for you, Mitch. We'll get you out of here on these, and thank you again so much for the time coming out here to talk about BYU. Number one, score prediction. Who's going to win this game tomorrow?
Man, I'm torn on this. I feel like this whole week I felt like Kansas is going to win this game, but I feel like there's a lot more similarities statistically in some areas for both these teams. I'll say BYU pulls an upset. Look, I don't feel good about it. I could totally see Kansas running away with this thing and winning by 2 touchdowns, but BYU, to their credit, they do show up in these big stages, these big games. You get up to Kalani's had a knack for that. It's the games where there's not much on the line and they just lay a dud. In these stages where there's so much attention and eyeballs, they seem to rise to the occasion. So the minimum, I expect a close game. I think BYU will find a way to sneak one out and convert. They've been very good in the red zone too this year. I mean, they've had 10 red zone appearances and they've got 9 touchdowns. They're a very efficient team. I think BYU will sneak away with a victory.
All right, last one I've got for you. As personally a KU grad and someone who still lives in Lawrence, where have you been recommended to go get food while you're in town?
I haven't really received any recommendations. Please enlighten me. Give me some recommendations. I was going to go to social media and maybe ask some questions, but if you got any, feel free. I'm about to fire up the rental and head over to Lawrence.
Well, I will tell you this. KU Twitter fans will be very happy to tell you all of their favorite places in town and list like 44 places you won't possibly have time to go to. If you're looking for a couple, though, got to hit up 23rd Street Brewery, the Bill Self, which I know you know all about Bill Self at this point and sure will during basketball season. The Bill Self, best thing on the menu there. Dempsey's Burgers downtown on Vermont Street as well. Best burgers in town for my money. So those are my 2 number 1 recommendations for you, Mitch.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. I think this is kind of the fun thing for me, personally. It's just, I've been covering a program that's independent. So it's, I do these, radio interviews and I would never talk to the host again. Hopefully, we can do this down the road and cross paths at Big 12 basketball media days next month. And I just think it's a fun dynamic, interacting and being part of a conference culture. And BYU hasn't done this in 13 years, so it should be pretty fun.
No, we are excited. I know we are very excited that BYU, with that fan base and that much want to win, very happy they are members of the Big 12. Very happy that Mitch Harper from KSL Sports is in Salt Lake City, joining us here on 580 Sports Talk. Mitch, thank you so much for the time. Enjoy Lawrence. Enjoy the game tomorrow. And indeed, we'll talk to you come basketball season.
Hey, thanks, guys. Take care.
That is Mitch Harper from KSL Sports. Awesome insight into everything going on with BYU athletics. I was really curious about that Sataki question because I remember people wanted to chase him out of town. And I thought, damn, really? Like, he feels like the perfect culture fit there.
Yeah, coaches like him are hard to come by. You find a guy who has some success and wants to be there, and you have to be a very specific fit to coach at a place like BYU, and he's that, and he's one. So, yeah, you stick with that unless something goes completely wrong, and that's not really foreseeable. Like, I don't see this program sliding into like 3 or 4 win irrelevance anytime soon. Certainly not under him,
especially after Bronco Mendenhall left under like bizarre circumstances.
Right?
Like, wait, why for Virginia? What?
Yeah, that was weird.
Appreciate the time though from Mitch Harper from KSL Sports. Let's get to a break. We'll play On Second Thought coming up on the other side of this timeout. Plus, we'll talk to Matt Derrick later this hour, our Chiefs insider. It's all coming up right here on 580 Sports Talk.
second thought, where we'd like to have a do-over, if you will.
I'll tell you mine. Mine's pretty easy. I should have given more love to my beloved Colorado State Rams last week. Now, granted, not for the final 3 minutes of regulation and into overtime, but I thought Colorado was going to roll over them because that CSU team has been bad the last couple of years. So the fact that they were even in that game last Saturday and made it interesting for a full 3.5 hours, I'll give them credit for that. I doubted the stalwart Rams.
On second thought, it's fun to predict the playoff teams in the NFL before the season begins. And we all know and understand that there's going to be a surprise team. If we could all predict them accurately, they wouldn't be a surprise, right? But it is fun to have a little bit of a dart throw and try and figure out who that surprise team is going to be each year that sneaks up from obscurity and finds themselves in the NFL postseason. It's not going to be the Bears. And I said it was, and it's not going to be the Bears.
Some of us told you this was not going to happen.
I will never forget your reaction to that. You acted like I admitted to like eating my own boogers on the air.
I appreciate the boldness, but that's like pulling up from 80 feet and like the ball lands at the free throw line.
Yeah, very much oh gosh. Come on. The guy from Fresh Prince. Not Carlton. Carlton.
Yeah.
Like Carlton's half court shot at the end of the basketball game.
Yeah.
That's how I'm feeling right now about my Bears pick.
Late before the KU game started, I was like, man, KU's playing well. Nevada stinks. KU's covering the 27. I'm an idiot. KU covering.
Yeah, you weren't alone on that one either.
7. What a stupid dummy I am. You want to know who's not a stupid dummy? Whoever's going to be caller number 3. If you are caller number 3, you are in fact very smart. Some say a genius, because if you are caller number 3, you get the 4 tickets to the K-State Central Florida game. That's it. Caller
UCF.
number 3, UCF. 785-272-9429. Very simple, very easy. Caller number 3. You are going to the Bill. Bring your poncho. Bring it. All right. You might need it. Just a poncho, trash bag, anything that won't keep you wet. All right. Be a Boy Scout. Be prepared.
Unless you're one of those people who just doesn't care.
You should care.
I mean, I hate it, but there's some people who just are like, oh, so what? I'm wet. Right?
Yeah, I don't like that.
Yeah.
Nothing's worse than wet socks inside your shoes.
Yeah, that's no good. Although a poncho won't really help that. Unless you're wearing like a full body draped over you.
I got a fantastic poncho.
Is it your master's one?
Damn right it is.
Yeah.
I'm bringing that tonight just in case. But I don't think there's going to be rain tonight.
I don't think it is supposed to rain. I think most of our rain finished off this morning.
So looks like Dan does have a winner on the line. So 4 tickets, K-State versus UCF. We'll be giving away tickets coming up against TCU, Houston, Baylor, and Iowa State. Those are all home. Like, they're home schedule. They should have beat. They should go undefeated at home.
Yeah, I got a good chance.
They should be 7-0 at home. They should win 7 games. Easy peasy. 7-0.
So who else is it at home? They've got
TCU, Houston, Baylor, Iowa State.
Yeah, that's pretty easy home slate.
They should mop the floor.
Baylor?
Yeah.
Yeah, Baylor's not very good.
No, Baylor's not very good. So
who's our winner?
Doug.
Dirty Doug.
Shout out to Doug.
Why you gotta be dirty?
Dirty's not necessarily a bad thing.
Best friend Doug from Hangover.
Yeah. Or Doug Funny.
I have a pal named Doug who's in my wedding.
You have a dog named Pork Chop?
I had a cat named Doug Moe, named after the Nuggets head coach.
There we go. Coming up next, we're going to talk with Matt Derrick on all things Chiefs. heading to Kansas City to talk all things Chiefs football with our Chiefs insider, Matt Derrick. Getting Matt on the phone as we speak.
How happy do you think Matt is that he only has to indirectly deal with the stuff that the Bears are dealing with? Like, as a beat writer, as someone who's got to be in the building and is interviewing coaches and dealing with that stuff, like, do you think Matt sees a week like this for Chicago and just thinks, thank God that's not me?
I think they more empathize. And here's the reason why. Because Matt probably had to deal with this in 2012.
Yeah, that's true. Was Matt full-time on the beat in 2012? I don't know if he was.
I don't know. But, like, that's what I think of. You know?
Yeah, that's probably true.
I think in the coaching searches, like, I always felt for Jesse Newell when Jesse was covering the KU beat because he had to do a coaching search every 2 years. Like, I just felt bad for him. I really, really did.
Yeah,
but
that's true.
It is what it is.
There was a Bears beat writer, Dan Wiederer, who writes for the Chicago Tribune, who wrote the other day that in his 11 years covering the Bears, he's never seen a day like that in his entire life, like Wednesday was. Very, very funny, though. By the way, were you... Or did you mention this earlier, Dan, that there had been theft from Soldier Field this week?
Yeah, Jake brought that up. Like $100,000 worth of stuff?
Yeah, $100,000 worth of equipment stolen from Soldier Field.
So 3 hoodies. Interesting.
3 hoodies made by Fanatics with crooked print.
Interesting.
That's a bars.
Interesting. Having some technical difficulties trying to get a hold of Matt Derrick. Do you want to do picks right now? And because maybe we will run down Matt coming up in the 4:00 hour. We can do our picks right now because that's what we're planning on doing in the 4:00 hour. If we can't get a hold of Matt right now, this is what you got to love about live radio. You just gotta go with it. So we can get to this. Rough go of it for you guys on the picks last week.
Yeah, it was bad.
Tough
pick
go
so far.
Tough go of it. I have been the tortoise. You guys have been the hare. I've been straight 3-2 weeks. 3-2 all 3 weeks. Been steady as she goes when it comes to our picks. So trying to get a hold of Matt, but
all right, let's get to picks. That's fine.
You want? We'll get to picks. Maybe we can talk with Matt coming up in the 4:00 hour. So
all right, get to picks. Jake, you go first.
All righty. We'll start with the NFL. I like Seattle over Carolina. It's a home game, and it's not even a touchdown. I like Seattle. I think the hook helps in this situation. Carolina's going to be starting Andy Dalton. I think the Seahawks are going to start getting things going. So give me the Seahawks by 5.5.
Your lips to God's ears. There's a reason, though, that line has come down even with Bryce Young being ruled out. Opened at 6.
Yeah, I like Seattle. And then you mentioned Pittsburgh. I don't think Vegas is very good. So give me Pittsburgh in the points. I think Pittsburgh's going to win the game, and you're going to give me a couple points. I'll take Pittsburgh plus 1.5 on the road to Vegas.
That's such a gross game.
Terrible game, but I like Pittsburgh. So those are my NFL picks. What do you got for your NFL picks?
All right, my picks for today. Let me get back on the video here. All right, my NFL picks for this week. I am going Washington plus 6.5 against Buffalo.
Sam Howell believer, or more so Eric Bieniemy believer?
More so Washington defense believer. Okay. The Bills played one good defense, and Josh Allen looked horrible. They played one really bad defense, and Josh Allen looked good. I like Josh Allen. I think the good version of him that we saw last week is closer to the reality than what we saw in week 1. But I think Washington, you're giving me almost 7 full points at home. I'll take the 6.5 with Washington as a home dog. And I'm going to go with Dallas minus 12.5 against Arizona.
Big spread.
Cardinals have played tough despite losing their first 2 weeks. Last week, they blew a gigantic lead against the Giants. Giants ended up winning. We have also learned definitively the Giants are a bad football team. Correct. I think Dallas goes in there. Josh Dobbs is not going to know what to do against that defense, even without Trevon Diggs. So I will take Dallas minus 12.5 against Arizona.
I'm not sure Arizona's going to score. I don't know how they're going to score.
Yeah.
I am excited about this because Dan has an opposite of Brendan. Yes.
I do. I'm laying the 6.5 with Buffalo against Washington. I felt better about that before I knew that it sounds like the tropical storm is going to make that be a very rough, kind of muddy, rainy game. That generally helps the team that can run the ball better, and that is the Commanders. But I don't think the Commanders are very good. They dug themselves a 21-3 hole against the Broncos before the Broncos let them up out of it. They had trouble with the Cardinals in week 1 before they ultimately won by 4. We know how bad the Cardinals are. I just am not buying Washington just yet. I think Buffalo is the kind of team, or Washington is the kind of team that Buffalo will blow out. I think the Buffalo is substantially better and will beat them by at least a touchdown. And then I'm going with Brendan's Packers, laying 1.5 at home against New Orleans. That essentially makes that a pick 'em. And I think Green Bay will win that game at home. I just don't trust New Orleans right now. So I will take the Pack -1.5.
All righty, like it. I'm really happy with that because now I know one of you guys is not going. At least one of you is not going undefeated. Because one of you guys will have a loss.
Buddy, I'm coming off a 1-4 week. I'll take anything better than
I know
that.
it was a rough week.
It was a terrible week.
College football. I am surprised you guys aren't hopping on this because the Dabo haters, both of you are. I like Florida State to win this game. Florida State on the road to Clemson. I know it's on the road. Clemson ain't the same Clemson. Florida State, if you are a top 5 team, you beat Clemson by more than 1 point. So give me Florida State to cover the 1.5 over Clemson. And I'm surprised this line is low as it is. Must be something I don't know because Pitt lost to West Virginia. North Carolina is a good team. Give me North Carolina -7.5. I think they might even blow out Pitt. I don't know. There's something about that line that makes me a little scared, but I'm going to ride with it.
So here's my question about that pick. I think Pitt's really bad. Phil Jurkovec is broken. He is completely broken after that last injury he had at Boston College. How do we know UNC's good?
This is more so that Pitt's bad.
That's fair. No, that's entirely
bad.
fair.
And I think Drake May's good. I think Drake May's good.
I have no qualms about Drake May.
I have a qualm about Drake May. He's turning the ball over a bunch.
Well, in this game, he's not going to, so we're fine.
All right.
I think he's had 2 multi-interception games so far, which matches his career total going into this year. So, yeah, I have some concerns.
He saw those 2 teams that are going to be picking 1-2 this year, needing quarterbacks, and he thought, oh, dear.
Yeah, it's like somebody could take Shadur Sanders. I'll be happy in the mid-teens.
Yeah, let's see. Let's get Michael Penix moving up. Let's get Shadur Sanders moving up. I'll fall in the teens. That's fine. My college picks, I'm going to take one gigantic. This is the trap line. Oregon -21.5. Because just like last week, everyone was on Colorado to crush Colorado State. Now it is flipped the other way, and CU, the Buffs, are the huge underdogs. This is the biggest test that Colorado has faced yet. I am willing to be I'll be the square here. That's fine. I'll take Oregon by a bunch.
I just wouldn't go near a Colorado game with a 99.5-foot pole because clearly Vegas doesn't know how to handicap this Colorado team.
No.
Yet.
That's fair. That's entirely fair.
Maybe they've got it figured out. This is the week they figure it out, but I'll withhold my judgment.
My other pick, in South Bend, Notre Dame +3.5 against Ohio State, and I think I might just take that game on the money line. I do not trust Ohio State as far as I can throw them right now. I don't like Kyle McCord. I think their defense is good, but not as good as the numbers would indicate. I don't think they have the same kind of offensive line that they have had in recent years. And I think Ryan Day has lost a little of the luster. I think he's a good coach. I don't think he's a great coach. I'm going to take Notre Dame largely because they've got a grown adult as their quarterback.
And you're getting the hook.
And you're getting points.
Which all week I watched that line, and today I think is the first day I've seen it at 3.5. It's been sitting at 3 most of the week.
Do you think
I really like that play.
Do you think Notre Dame can win?
Yes.
Yes, I'm taking money line.
Then you take the team with the points. But also, real quick, where does the whole I can't trust them as far as I can throw them? What does that even? I don't get that. I never understood that. I'm just gonna ask her.
I mean, I don't know where it came from. I just know the saying.
What does it mean though?
I
can't throw you very far, Brandon. I'm not gonna lie to you.
So if you didn't trust me as far as you could throw me, you could only throw me a couple feet. You would trust me even less than that.
So what you're saying is I could probably throw my kid pretty far.
Okay, this is wading into waters I don't want to touch.
I'm just saying I could throw my kid pretty far. But he's only 3, so can you trust a 3-year-old? Yeah. So, all righty, Dan, what do you got?
All right. So my college football picks. I've got another home dog getting a field goal. They're not getting the hook yet, and they might not, and that's bothering me. I think Vegas is undervaluing the Washington State Cougars. I think this is a good football team. I loved what they did against Wisconsin. Their win against Colorado State looks a lot better in light of how Colorado State played Colorado. Washington is catching 3 at home against Oregon State in the Pac-2 championship game, as Paul Meyerberg called it yesterday. I think the Cougs are going to win that game.
That's going to be a good game. Oregon State's pretty good, too.
Yeah, both those teams are really good.
Yeah. I think it's not that I think Oregon State is bad. I just think Washington's good enough to win that game at home.
Okay.
I think that's that's what I really like there. Is I like Wazoo +3 at home, and then Iowa Penn State. We've gotten our jokes off at Iowa, and with good reason. They are all very funny jokes. Iowa offense, they've caught up. They're over the speed limit. Brian Ferentz's speed bus has caught up. They are over 55 miles an hour. They scored 41 points last week. He's averaging above the 25 points he needs.
Yeah, he's plus 11 right now.
Yes, plus 11 to keep his job. They go to Penn State. I think that's a night game, primetime game. That's a CBS game. Penn State, traditionally very tough at Happy Valley at night. I understand this. I was getting 14.5, and I think I was too good on defense.
Yeah, low scoring game.
To be catching that many points.
Let me just do this. If they score 14, I don't think Penn State's scoring 29.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah.
I think, the question for me is, and Iowa usually finds a way to flip the field with a defensive play or a special teams play, get them an easy touchdown. Like, this feels like maybe 27-17 to me, something like that. But I don't think this is a 2-touchdown game. It might be, even if it is a 2-touchdown game, I got the hook.
If Penn State destroys Iowa and they hang 30 some points in this game, man, Penn State's defense or Penn State's offense is legit. That'd be a good win. Yeah. Alrighty. My wild card. I'm gonna ride with it until he doesn't do it because he's gotten 150 yards in 2 straight games. Give me the over on Justin Jefferson.
That number is going up so much every single week.
I got it
up to 105.
It's up to 100 yards.
100.5, excuse me.
He's gonna get over 100 yards. He's so good. I'm gonna take that until he doesn't.
I don't blame you. He's pretty great. And I think, like I said earlier, there's going to be a ton of offense in Chargers Vikings.
My wild card for the week, Kentucky, Vanderbilt, over 49.5. Vandy does not play defense. They have half a roster, friends. They've gone over the total all 4 of their games so far. Even Kentucky is going to take that game over. Yeah, they played week 1.
They played Hawaii
week
in
0.
week 0.
Okay,
Yeah,
gotcha.
Did you see? You probably did. If you had a chance to tune to CBS Sports Network, hoping to see the start of KU Nevada, you caught the end of UNLV Vanderbilt.
Yeah,
that was bonkers. And also, Vanderbilt lost to UNLV.
Yeah, they did. It was an awesome finish.
Yeah, it was. It was a great finish. My wild card: bad weather in the Mid-Atlantic. 2 quarterbacks that stink. 2 defenses that I think are really good. Jets, Pats, under 36.5.
Oh, my goodness.
Disgusting.
36.5.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is your dumpster juice pick of the week.
Wow.
Remember last year, I think same spot at the Meadowlands. That was the walk-off punt return game for New England. That made it 10-3. That was the final score of that game. Also, the Patriots were laying 6.5 in that game, and I was on that side. My greatest gambling win of all time to date is that cover.
Those are our picks. I'm 8-5 on the year. Steady Eddie, 3-2 every week, making money. Dan had a tough week last week. He's 6-7. Brendan looking for a 5-0 week. 5-0 week, Brendan, gets you over and into the good.
No, that would actually make me 500.
Yeah, he'd be down
the
You're
correct.
4-9 plus 5-0.
Yeah.
You'd be down the vig.
Yeah. Look, man, I'll take 3-2. I'll take a win. We're trying to stack progress here.
Okay.
That's what we're doing. We're stacking.
Alrighty, so Survivor picks. I am going with, I'm not messing around. I'm going with Dallas. Dallas is going to get the dub over Arizona.
Brendan?
I'm going to go with the Baltimore Ravens taking on the Colts. I like Gardner Minshew as a backup, but no Anthony Richardson. He's been so much of their offense so far. I will take Baltimore.
Okay.
Going with the Jags, bouncing back at home against Houston, who I think really stinks. I know that CJ Stroud has had some moments, but I still think that's a really sorry team, and that Jacksonville is actually good, even though I have some questions about their passing game, some of the things they try to do in the passing game. I think Houston's a good get-right game for a Jacksonville team bouncing back off a Week 2 loss to the Chiefs. So I will ride with the Jags.
Before we go any further, we have to address this. Ties. If there is a tie, what happens? Is it a loss?
It's not a win.
Well, that's not.
Yeah,
right.
it's got to be a win to move on to the survivor pool, doesn't it?
Well, that's what we're going to determine right now.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So,
Yeah,
I
you
think
got
have
to win the
win.
game.
Okay.
You're picking a winner.
Okay, so if Jacksonville and Houston tie, you lost.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, because that happened last year, and we didn't have any parameters set.
No, that's smart.
So
Didn't bring it up.
I do
Who
want to bring
lost
that up.
Week 1? Was it Fulton last
Yes,
year?
it was
Yeah,
Fulton. He rode with the Chargers, and they lost Week 1. Good old Fulton.
Damn it, Folt.
No, Fulton's fantastic. I gave him. I sent him my.
You did remember?
my weekly dad joke.
Did you get a response this week?
He did. He said, "Good joke, 5 out of 10." It's a great joke. I said it to my mom the other day, and I also sent it to my wife. Did you guys know that they found out that Bruce Lee has a brother? Yeah, Brocco.
That's dumb.
Fulton giving you a 5 out of 10 for that is the nicest thing he's ever done.
I love it.
That is awful.
Coming
That
up-
is genuinely awful.
That's a terrific joke.
Yeah, it really
Coming up,
sucks.
Matt Derrick joins us to talk Chiefs. 580 Sports Talk, hour number 3 on this Red Friday. Thank you so much for joining us. Jake LeBon, Brendan Dworzinski, Dan Lucero with you. We got an action-packed weekend tonight. Our Lewis Toyota Game of the Week on our sister station, Classic Country 106.9, will be Washburn Rural hosting Manhattan. That should be a good old-fashioned 1940s type of game. A lot of power football in that situation. Should be a lot of fun tonight, 6:45 pregame. And then tomorrow, Washburn's in action on Classic Country 106.9 at 1. You got K-State in action on the big 94.5 Country at 5 o'clock pregame, 7 o'clock kickoff on the big 94.5. And then Sunday, Chiefs and Bears with the kickoff on the big 94.5 Country, kickoff at 3:25, 2 o'clock pregame coverage. So if you want to watch or listen to Mitch Holtis and the gang from the Chiefs Radio Network, you need to go to the big 94.5 Country tomorrow, 2 o'clock pregame, 3:30, 3:25 kickoff. And to talk all things Chiefs right now is Matt Derrick, our Chiefs insider. Follow Matt on Twitter at Matt Derrick, ChiefsDigest.com. Matt, how are you doing today?
I'm doing much better than I am with managing time, so we'll just go with that, Jake.
It happens, man. It's all good. That's the beauty of it. We just moved our 4 o'clock topic to the 3:30 and call it good.
There you go. I love that you guys know me. You know, every once in a while you have to be able to adapt around me. So I appreciate you putting up with me.
I feel like that was like the very first time you've ever done this, Matt. So I feel like that's not that big of a deal.
Well, I can be high maintenance at times.
Zero chance of that, Matt.
I'm sure there are people who will say I'm high maintenance.
Well, hey.
Yeah, you tell them to come talk to us.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's right, because we're big and tough. Matt, aren't you glad you're not a Bears beat reporter right now?
Yeah. No, that is just, I mean, it just gets weirder and weirder with everything that's going on in Chicago right now. It's bizarre, but no, I mean, and I had Dave Scrutta from the Associated Press the other day. We sit next to each other in the workroom, and he said, when was the last time a team dysfunctional came into Arrowhead to play a game? And I said, well, 2012 Chiefs. That's about where the Bears are. I mean, that's how bad it is.
Were you there for that?
I was not. I was not
Okay.
on the beat back then, so I was not there for the 2-14 season
Yep.
for Romeo. But that was. I mean, Bears are at the peak right
Yeah.
now, and I mean, and you know what though? I mean, Chiefs fans know it. Chiefs fans know that even bad teams can be dangerous because Chiefs, when they were one of the worst teams in the league, how often did they come up with some surprising wins, like beating the Packers in prime time? I mean, those Chiefs teams were dangerous, and this Bears team is kind of in the same ballpark to me.
Brendan, I think, was having a good day, and then you mentioned his 15-1 Packers.
Kyle Orton, man. Oh,
Yeah, we gotta watch out for Neckbeard, man. Neckbeard can play.
ugh.
I'd completely forgotten that it was Kyle Orton that won that game.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
And Brady Quinn in 2012. That was the Brady Quinn-led Chiefs over the Panthers after the tragedy there involving Javon Belcher.
Yeah, I mean, it can happen. So I mean, and they beat the Saints that year too, and yeah, I mean, you never know. And I'm hearing this kind of things out of Chicago as far as just on the field, the football stuff. When you hear a quarterback like Justin Fields, talking about just not thinking and letting it rip, you worry. I mean, because unpredictable things can happen. I mean, are the Chiefs a better team? Yeah. I mean, are the Bears just the absolute mess right now? Absolutely. But if a football team doesn't have any cares, any worries, and is just going out there and just letting it rip, you just never know what's going to happen.
I want to go back to the Jags game, which seems so long ago. But what sticks out to your mind in that Jacksonville game?
I mean, my permanent takeaway is just going to be the defense and how well it's playing right now. And especially, they had a couple of huge red zone stops, and they had one obviously off the special teams turnover that their back was against the door, and they managed to hold them to a field goal in that spot. I mean, the defensive performance the first 2 weeks has been really impressive, but There's not a whole lot. I mean, outside of the Jawan Taylor issues on the offensive line and the penalties right now with him. Otherwise, I mean, when I look back on the season, I mean, that's what's going to stand out to me is defensive performance.
Offensively, any worries at all about the turnovers and penalties?
Some just because, now it's 2 games where this offense is making mistakes that they don't normally make. Obviously, I think they pretty much put to bed the rest about whether drops were going to be the defining moment of the season. Maybe they'll pop up at some point, but penalties and turnovers have been the consistent one. And, the offensive line penalties are the big one right now. And I don't think it's going to be a permanent thing. I mean, if Jawan Taylor can have a couple of games where he just slows his roll a little bit, gets his alignment fixed, maybe just, fights his tendency to go on the cadence and just go on the snap, and does that for a couple of games and gets the officials off his back and he gets off the radar, I think he'll be fine. I mean, it just needs a couple of games to get that out and everybody get it out of their system and stop talking about it. And I think he'll be okay. And once you do that, I mean, I think that takes care of the rest of the problem. His play, and honestly, I think Donovan Smith's the same way. Their play, when there aren't any penalties called, has been fine. I mean, there hasn't been any issues there. I think they've been playing really, really well and fitting in with what this offense does. So you eliminate those penalties, and I mean, that'll be one big part of fixing the offense. I mean, there might still be some questions about whether everybody's on the same page. I mean, Andy Reid clearly seems to think that once they get these mistakes ironed out, that it's just going to be back to normal. But honestly, I mean, the mistakes, these should be fairly easy to clean up.
We're chatting with Matt Derrick, who covers the Kansas City Chiefs for ChiefsDigest.com. It's our Chiefs Insider here on 580 Sports Talk, with Matt joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. Go check out all of his work covering the Chiefs at ChiefsDigest.com, and you can find him on Twitter at Matt Derrick is his handle over there. How badly are the Chiefs going to miss Nick Bolton this week, Matt?
Badly, but not as badly as they would have in previous seasons. If this were last year, and this is no knock on like a guy like Darius Harris, but if Nick Bolton goes down and that's who you're bringing in as your backup, yeah, I mean there'd be some concerns. But having Drew Tranquill as their 4th linebacker is just, to me, an indication of just how deep this group is. I mean, they obviously feel good about their starters. Leo Chanel's playing really good as well, and I think Willie Gay's obviously playing some of his best football too. But the fact that you got a veteran who's as savvy as Drew Tranquill, who can come in and back up Nick Bolton, that's big. I mean, that's why I think that the Chiefs feel pretty comfortable as far as just not pushing Nick Bolton to play this week. He obviously played through the ankle at when it happened in Jacksonville, and yes, those things can absolutely get worse the next day and after the swelling starts to kick in and everything. But how many times have we seen the Chiefs try and push an injury like that to keep a guy in the field that they need? They don't feel the need with Drew. So is it a step down? Yeah, because Nick Bolton's a really good player, but Drew Tranquill is pretty good in his own right. He's got his own strengths. So will it be as smooth as it has always been? Maybe not, but I was really impressed with how Drew handled that role as a backup during training camp, and talking to the guys on the defense and talking to the coaching staff. I mean, they have a lot of faith in Drew Tranquill.
Is there any reason why Chris Jones shouldn't be just as good, if not better, this week than he was last week?
Not that I can think of. I mean, if anything, I think he maybe could be poised to have a better performance, because this Bears offensive line is just about as banged up, if not worse, than what Jacksonville just went through. I mean, I think that and even then, I mean, I think that the Bears offensive line's probably worse, and then they've got the injuries on top of it. So, I mean, there's a great opportunity, and their starting center is even banged up a little bit. They're working with basically one new tackle in the spot, and a rookie on the other side. They've got a lot of things going on there, so there's going to be plenty of opportunities for the Chiefs to attack both inside and out. And interesting that Steve Spagnuolo this week talked about how there's times when they just let Chris Jones pick where he wants to line up. I mean, he's going to have, if that's the case this week, and Chris can pick his matchup sometimes, then yeah, I mean, he's got a few different favorable matchups to choose from. and is, and given that he should have a little bit of the rust knocked off and have a few more snaps that he's going to add under his belt this week, yeah, I mean, I think the potential is there for him to just to continue to have an even better performance than he did against Jacksonville. And that was a really good performance.
We're talking with Matt Derrick. He is our Chiefs insider here on 580 Sports Talk, and he joins us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline every Friday on the show. Check out Matt's work at ChiefsDigest.com. Find him on Twitter at Matt Derrick. Matt, it's always strange to talk about the importance of the running game for a team with literally Patrick Mahomes as the quarterback, but the Chiefs do seem to operate better offensively when there is a legitimate threat that they could run the football. They haven't been great running the ball the first 2 weeks, and now Isaiah Pacheco is questionable with a hamstring injury. Do you see the Chiefs maybe deploying Jerick McKinnon a bit more this week if Pacheco can't go? Or is this a Clyde Edwards-Helaire game? How do you see that aspect of the offense maybe being different this week against the Bears and with the chance that Pacheco might not be 100%?
Yeah, I still don't get a big sense that they want to use McKinnon in any more of a role than what he's in right now, which is just in passing situations, a lot of third downs. I don't think that they want to put a huge number of snaps under him just because they want to save him for the entire season. He's an older guy, and I think they want to make sure that he's fresher in December and January and February than he would be otherwise. So I think they're always going to manage his workload a little bit. So if Pacheco is limited, if even doesn't play on Sunday, yeah, I'd expect to see a lot more of Clyde. But, that's the thing. I mean, especially last week, they really got out of line as far as just trying to stay balanced between run pass. And you're right. I mean, you would think that the more times odd than not that the ball's in the hands of Patrick Mahomes, you're going to be in better shape. But if the defense can just sit back and play for the pass and not give any respect whatsoever to the run, it just makes it that much more difficult. So you need to be able to have a little bit of threat. And in the second half against Jacksonville, I mean, they did. They loosened it up. They had that big run from Pacheco early on, and I think that did a lot to break up the defense a little bit. You have to have that threat, like you said. And at this point, the Chiefs just haven't had much of it. So how much of that's on the offensive line? How much is on the running backs themselves? How much is on the play calling? Probably a little bit of ownership in all three. And we'll see. I mean, sometimes when the Chiefs have one of those games where they don't run the football effectively, Andy Reid comes out and then wants to make a point by doing exactly that this week. Well, let's see what happens. But this is an opportunity, at least for that run game, to get well.
Who do you see as being the pass catcher du jour this Sunday? Because the Chiefs last week, they spread the ball out a little bit. They got Kadarius Toney involved early. Obviously, Sky Moore was involved late. Wasn't a huge game for Kelsey in his first game back from the injury, but he still managed to catch a touchdown pass. Who do you see as being the breakout target of week 3, particularly with Richie James down and the chance that Toney is limited as well?
Yeah, your guess is as good as mine. I mean, it really is. We haven't seen that. And, outside of Kelsey, the Chiefs don't have that alpha pass catcher right now. And until one of these guys breaks out and proves that they can do it, I'm going to just question about who that is. Right now, Travis Kelce's been banged up, and so he hasn't been his usual self. Any week for Travis is going to be the possibility that he could snap out of it. But my sleeper pick would probably be for Sky Moore. I mean, I think one week Sky Moore is going to have a big breakout game. And so I wouldn't be surprised. He might be my little sneaky bet.
Matt Derrick on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline joining us here. Why I want it to be Rashee Rice. If Toney can't go because he's listed as questionable, do you think it's Rice that is the first out of the bullpen?
It's a really good question. I mean, he was kind of thrown in by Dave Toad this week as being a possibility as a return guy. And I still think that it's much more likely that they'll probably link with one of the veterans. And we use veteran very loosely because it could be Sky Moore. I don't think that they'll, push Toney into that role or anything. Justin Watts is a possibility as well. But, I'll be interested to see. And, and with some guys banged up and with Toney limited and everything, as far as who's going to get some targets, yeah, I mean, I think they would like to try and see Rashee Rice get a little bit more involved. And against this Bears team, I think there's an opportunity.
All righty, Matt. The spread is 12.5. What do you like?
I mean, I had said that I wasn't going to take the Chiefs to win by double digits until they actually did it. And then I look at the Bears matchup, and I just can't. I'm like, there shouldn't be any way that this is a close game because the Chiefs are a better team, and the Bears are struggling right now. So I'm going to go with the Chiefs 24-10, but I'm not really excited about it.
Only 24 points. You don't think the offense then gets kind of on track?
Well, I think they're going to be a little bit, on the slow side. I don't think they're going to want to push it, too much this week and everything. And the offense is struggling right now.
All right, Matt, as always, we appreciate the time. We will talk to you next week, gearing up for maybe the second worst or the worst quarterback that the Chiefs will face this upcoming season.
There you go. We'll see what happens. Take care, guys.
Matt Derrick, ChiefsDigest.com.
Unbelievable. You get to face Justin Fields and Zach Wilson back to back.
Correct.
The Jets at least have a really good defense.
Correct.
In fact, the Jets have a lot of good players.
Not quarterback.
They don't have a good quarterback, though.
They don't.
They knew exactly what they were going into the offseason. They were a team that was a quarterback away from being really, really good. And then they went and got the quarterback and they had him for 4 plays.
4.
It's so cruel.
Yeah. It makes the NFL less fun. Like the Jets being good this year would have been way fun.
Yes, like the more good quarterbacks there are, the more entertaining the NFL is.
Unless he plays for Cleveland.
had that little void. We had that little pocket there late, right before, frankly, Mahomes, where it was starting to get late for some of the great veteran quarterbacks like Eli Manning and Ben Roethlisberger and Phillip Rivers. Like those guys were starting to be on the downturn, and there wasn't like a great wave of quarterbacks behind them that were like entering their primes at the time. Like mid 2010s, that was not a great NFL product. And the big reason was there weren't a lot of great quarterbacks. We're experiencing a quarterback renaissance right now. Unfortunately, yeah, it's always unfortunate when you lose one of those guys for the season.
Coming up, we are going to talk all things K-State and UCF with Adam Eaton of Sons of UCF. All of that coming up, plus what is wrong with you. And we'll hear from Hayden product, Desmond Purnell, outside linebacker for the Cats. That's all coming up here on 580 Sports Talk.
What is wrong with you time here on 580 Sports Talk? We're about to find our weekly winner. And first, I want to remind you The What Is Wrong With You is brought to you by Top City Metal Supply, who cuts the metal you need to your specifications that saves time, money, and material. So never settle when it comes to metal at Top City Metal Supply on South Topeka Boulevard, halfway between Frito-Lay and Forbes Field. Our winner for the week is the guy who got naked, got crazy high, and then fell into a 30-foot hole at the Bills game last week.
He did so many drugs.
So many drugs.
Then he covered himself in the contents of a porta potty.
A lot of poop.
Then he climbed over a fence.
Big fence.
And he fell down a pit.
Bigger hole.
And then he fell down an even bigger pit.
Really big hole.
30 feet. He fell 30 feet.
Nude. Covered in feces.
And was fine, other than the cuts on his face.
That's
Again,
what happens when you're that coked out.
Cocaine, marijuana, and LSD.
Literally a Queens of the Stone Age
I was
song.
just about to make the Queens of the Stone Age joke.
Literally feel-good hit of the summer.
He definitely thinks he cannot die. He is immortal.
Oh, yeah. No doubt about that.
He's going to tell all his friends.
Please do not try doing this again. My story today is going to take us back to Florida, Sumter County, Florida specifically, where Florida deputies allege that a woman attacked two people at a pool for doing stretches that she thought were inappropriate. Amanda Ferragamo, 41 years old, was arrested after an incident early Sunday morning. A female victim told deputies she and the male victim were doing stretches when Ferragamo smacked and shoved them both. The arrest affidavit states the female victim then stated that the defendant accused both of them of doing inappropriate activities and began to shove her and smacked her across the face. The female victim had a red mark on her face, indicating she was hit as well. This incident happened at 2:32 a.m. The male victim told the deputy, quote, "She bleeping attacked us. She's pissed." Deputies wrote in the affidavit that the female victim had a red mark on her face, as we already mentioned. According to Fox 35 TV, the man and Ferragamo are in some way connected, although they do not know exactly how. That makes the incident domestic in nature. However, officials with the Sumter County Sheriff's Office did not further explain their relationship. She has been charged with 2 counts of battery and was released on Monday.
If you're on the video stream, I'm going to put her mugshot up. This is the most preposterous jawline I've ever seen in my life, man. Why she looks like Glenn Quagmire from Family Guy. She got the Quagmire jawline, man. What is going on there?
It's a little square.
It is the squarest jaw I've ever seen in my life. It's almost cartoonish. It really is. He looks like Quagmire.
She's got a real evil smile going on here, too.
Yes, like the eyes. Not trustworthy, man.
No, they're bad vibe with this mugshot. Very, very bad vibe.
I just can't get over the. It's just.
It's a very square. Maybe she had.
You could smash cinder blocks with that jawline.
Goodness gracious. Yeah, it's a bad vibe mugshot. There's no doubt about that.
Holy schlamoli.
So yeah, they were just stretching, just getting some calisthenics in, and working on their pliability. And she came up and smacked them both.
Wow, that is that's something else. For my story today, we are going to go.
This is so bad.
To the world of Major League Baseball. The Oakland Athletics, you may be aware, are the cheapest franchise maybe in all of professional sports.
Yep.
They are currently in the process of making a move, eventual move to Las Vegas. They play in a dump. They play in the worst stadium in baseball. Legendarily cheap, even in the good years. Legendarily cheap. You remember the part in Moneyball when I think it's David Justice, the character playing David Justice, tries to get a soda out of the machine, but it's not free.
Yeah.
And he doesn't understand why the soda isn't free. And I think it's Jonah Hill's character, the assistant GM, says, Billy likes to keep the money on the field.
I mean, realistically, there's a reason that Moneyball is about the A's.
Yes.
There's a reason why that is the team that made that happen.
Anyway, apparently the current ownership and current front office, they like to keep the money on the field too. Let's meet the other part of this story. Future Hall of Famer Miguel Cabrera. This is the final year of Miguel Cabrera's illustrious big league career. It is a surefire first ballot welcome to Cooperstown career that Miguel Cabrera has had. He has won MVPs. He has won a Triple Crown. He has won batting titles. He has won championships. I guess just one in 2003 as a rookie with the Marlins. He is over 500 career home runs. He is over 3,000 career hits. One of the all-time great hitters, Miguel Cabrera. And as is the custom for all-time great players, they are being celebrated when they make their final trips to the various stadiums across baseball. A nice little pregame ceremony, a little parting gift from the organization to the player. The A's and the Tigers are playing this weekend, and Miguel Cabrera's parting gift from the Oakland A's is a bottle of wine. A bottle, to be precise, of Camus 2020 Cabernet Sauvignon from Napa Valley. So it's local wine, right? Northern California wine. Retail price of that bottle of wine, $89.
I mean, that's not even like.
So
I don't drink wine, but I know that's nothing.
So bad to give a cheap bottle of wine, even if it does appear to be signed by all of the Oakland A's, which, oh, wow.
Sick.
I drink this wine. It's got Ken Waldachuk's autograph on it.
Oh, man.
That might have decreased the value, to be honest with you.
Thank God I have this Lawrence Butler signature.
Wow, Ryan Noda signed this? Sick. It may have devalued the bottle of wine, honestly. Have the signatures of a 110 loss team on it. Anyhow, gifts also in bad taste. Brendan, you are not a drinker. You don't drink. That is by choice.
Yep.
If I gave you a bottle of wine as a gift, you'd probably think that was pretty weird. Maybe a little off-putting.
Yeah, especially from like someone I know who also knows me. If you were like, here, have alcohol, I'd be like, I don't like this, but okay.
Even the most cursory bit of digging into Miguel Cabrera's personal history would reveal that he spent 3 months in rehab after the 2009 baseball season. He got a DUI like in the final weekend of the year. Really bad.
Yeah.
Like it was a really bad situation. Yes. The Tigers were getting ready to go into playoffs. It was a bad deal. And after that happened, Cabrera spent 3 months in outpatient treatment focused on getting sober. Unfortunately, relapsed and it happened again, and he had to go back into outpatient treatment in 2011. And since then has been very particular about his drinking, to the point where it was widely reported that his teammates celebrated with non-alcoholic champagne when he got his 3,000th hit last year. Like, Miguel Cabrera has had trouble with alcohol in his life. And however he is choosing to address that issue in his life, maybe don't give that guy a bottle of alcohol. And what's wild is the A's aren't even the only team to do this, because the Astros gave him a bottle of wine and the Marlins gave him a bottle of rum.
Okay, the Marlins doing it is especially bad, because I remember when he was in Miami, there were that's been a long time too.
Yeah,
it was not exactly a secret that Miguel Cabrera liked to drink a lot.
Yeah,
a lot. Remember, Miggy put on a lot of weight, too, at one point, which was influenced a lot by his heavy drinking. That's really awful. Like, I remember that very clearly. That's not exactly a secret.
Yeah.
That Miguel Cabrera has been through this.
So you gave him a $90 bottle of wine and said, good luck in your endeavors. You at least could have gotten him, like, A, something nice, B, something that he's not studiously attempting to avoid in his life. Like, what's he going to do? Going to give that away? You're going to go back to Venezuela and say, hey, I know you're a big Seth Brown fan. I know you really like Shea Langoliers' game. Would you like a bottle of wine signed by those guys?
That's so bad. All right, who you got today?
I'm going with Quagmire. Miss Quagmire beating up the dudes for stretching.
Looks like a me. How square that face is.
No, not me.
If you ever played on the old Wii system, you customize your characters and give them all sorts of different facial structures. Very square jawline.
You can do stonemasonry with that jawline.
All right, let's go with that one for today. I don't think that beats the naked guy covered in poop, high on every single drug, who fell 30 feet into a hole.
Yeah.
Pretty much sums it up.
The ultimate Bills Mafia story. Yeah, that one's moving on.
That one wins the day and the week in What Is Wrong With You, brought to you by Top City Metal Supply. Metal cut to order when you need it. That's Top City Metal Supply on South Topeka Boulevard. I am headed out of here. I am headed to Bowen Glaze Stadium at Washburn Earl High School. An absolutely massive Lewis Toyota High School football game of the week tonight. 3-0 Manhattan, 3-0 Washburn Rural. Pregame at 6:45, kick at 7. Dan will join me in the booth for that one. Jake will be on the sideline coming up tonight. Again, that's on Country 1069. Coming up on the other side of this break, we're going to talk a little UCF Knights football with Adam Eaton from sonsofUCF.com. And real quick, before I go, a very happy birthday to our very own Dan Lucero celebrating today.
Yes, thank you.
Woo!
That's so nice of you to say.
Yeah.
That's me. It is my birthday today.
So, Dan, happy birthday. I'll see
pal.
you in a little bit. We will talk to you guys later, and we'll talk some UCF coming up after this right here on 580 Sports Talk.
.438 on 580 Sports Talk. Dan Lucero riding solo the rest of the way on the program. Appreciate you tuning in, checking out the YouTube stream, 580 Sports Talk on YouTube. We've got lots more great stuff to get to. Final hour and a half of the program, plus some overtime in the 6 o'clock hour leading up to Royals baseball. Tomorrow night, 7 p.m. at Bill Snyder Family Stadium. The Big 12 opener for the Kansas State Wildcats against the UCF Knights. And earlier today, Jake LeBon and I had a chance to catch up with Adam Eaton from the Sons of UCF podcast, which you can find on Twitter at Sons of UCF. So enjoy this conversation and this preview from the UCF standpoint of a big game between the Wildcats and the Knights. First ever Big 12 game for UCF coming to K-State for the first time in 13 years. And there is a callback to that particularly memorable day in K-State football history and Manhattan weather history. You'll know what I'm talking about. But enjoy the conversation with Adam Eaton of the Sons of UCF.
So far in the Big 12 this year, gearing up for the first ever Big 12 game. How exciting is it down there for fans?
Yeah, thanks for having me on. People are really excited. Obviously, UCF is a young and up-and-coming program. You know, we didn't start playing football till 1979, didn't go D1 till 1996, and it feels like we're a program that's been scratching and clawing and trying to get our opportunity at the biggest stage. And after everything we've been through, to now be here and to be on the doorstep of our first ever Big 12 conference game, people are super excited. A lot of pandemonium, a lot of people trying to get out there for the game. It's a really cool, really fun atmosphere around Orlando right now.
Alrighty, let's talk about the team thus far. 3-0, couldn't ask for a better start. You clobber Kent State, hold on in a tough environment up there on the Smurf turf, and then you hammer Villanova. How would you assess the play so far?
Yeah, I think we've done everything that you probably would have asked us to set out to do. If I told fans at the end of this 3-game stretch, we would have blown out 2 teams that we should have blown out, and we would have won a tough road game at Boise, I think everyone would have signed up for that. So I think we've taken care of business the way that we need to take care of business. I think the 2 things that are probably most concerning as a UCF fan would be the level of competition, obviously in 2 of those 3 ball games wasn't exactly the highest. So I don't know that we yet know how good we can be and how much our execution was strong versus maybe some of the other teams were weak. But I would say there's a lot of optimism about the way that UCF battled at Boise State. They were down late in that game, drove down the field, kicked the game-winning field goal. Winning games on the road is not easy in college football. Winning at Boise is not easy in college football. And so for UCF to do that, I think there's a lot of optimism that this team potentially has the mettle to go and compete on the road in the Big 12. They have not been a great road team under the Gus Malzahn era. So a nice win on the road hopefully portends to the possibility that UCF can be a little bit more competitive on the road this year.
One thing that we always talk about on this show is you got to be able to hang your hat on something. We know going into this game, we are going to do this. What is that on the offensive side for UCF? What is it on the defensive side for UCF?
Yeah, offensively, I think what's interesting is, there's probably a myth around sort of the Gus Malzahn offensive style system, but UCF first and foremost wants to run the football. They have a stable of running backs led by R.J. Harvey, Johnny Richardson, Jordan McDonald. These are all names you're going to hear on Saturday night. They have a stable of running backs who are really good on the ground, and UCF likes to get yards on the ground. Quarterback will also run a bunch for UCF. So first and foremost, if they can run the football, if they can stretch the field vertically because of the run, that's what they want to do. But make no mistake about it, they want to set that up with the run. So if UCF is able to run the ball effectively on offense, that's the thing that will drive the engine on that side. On the defensive side of the ball, UCF is really stout on that defensive line, particularly in the middle. 2 really big boys in the middle, Lee Hunter and Ricky Barber. Lee Hunter, 6'4", 320, as quick as a cat, though, moves really well. And so if we're getting pushed in the middle of the line, if we're able to plug up run holes and make it hard for the other team to really get through running lanes on the line, that's when you'll know UCF's defense is clicking. So the running game on offense and really that stout D-line play on defense, those are the 2 things that you can pin up on a message board. Those are the 2 things UCF has to and typically wants to dominate from a team perspective.
Our guest is Adam Eaton from the Sons of UCF podcast. You can find them on YouTube. You can find them on Twitter at Sons of UCF. Find it that way because, Adam, I don't know if you know this, but you're a tough guy to Google. Shout out to the 2 former Major League Baseball players with the same name as you. So your podcast much easier to find. And if you want some great UCF content, you should check it out at Sons of UCF. Adam, different quarterback than we anticipated when the season began for this matchup. John Rice Plumlee is out with an injury. Timmy McClain got the start against Villanova. He'll get the start on Saturday in Manhattan. What do we expect to see from him? How is he different athletically, skill set wise from Plumlee? And how do you feel he came out of his first start?
Yeah, and look, he played really well against Villanova. Now, I'll put the asterisk there and say, obviously, Villanova, an FCS-level team, and so comparable to what we'll see in Kansas State is obviously very, very different. But Timmy McClain has probably a stronger arm than John Rice Plumlee, probably more natural thrower of the football than John Rice Plumlee is. However, John Rice Plumlee is a superb athlete and has game-breaking speed. Timmy McClain can run the football and is not afraid to tuck it and pick up some yards, but he certainly does not have the electric speed that you're used to out of John Rice Plumlee. So you would think in the passing game, there would be opportunities to open the windows up a little bit more for UCF, and that I think Timmy McClain's probably even more accurate and more direct with the football. He's also left-handed, which obviously isn't a huge deal, but the line has to get used to his strong side and weak side changing from John Rice Plumlee. Receivers, the ball spins a different direction, obviously. Didn't have any trouble last week versus Villanova on that front, but obviously being left-handed adds a little bit of a change from an offensive standpoint. But he's a good thrower of the football. He'll get some yards on the ground if he needs to. But his biggest attribute is he's able to make something out of nothing. There's a play in the Villanova game where the snap from center essentially bounced back to him like a basketball. And he picked it up and he eluded a tackler and he ran around the side and picked up a first down. And so he can make something out of nothing. He can scramble, find the open receiver, and he can really help you when a play breaks down. John Rice Plumlee had game-breaking speed and would turn the edge and probably be gone for 30 yards. Where Timmy's going to turn that edge, look for an open receiver, and probably find the tight end, 10 yards down the middle of the field. That's probably the bigger difference you'll see as you compare John Rice Plumlee to Timmy McClain.
Kansas State last week in their loss to Missouri struggled against explosive plays. Missouri, I think, had 6 20-plus yard offensive plays in that game, and those were crucial in putting together the scoring drives for Mizzou. When I watched UCF play, I didn't watch the Villanova game, but I watched pretty much all of the Boise State game, and you notice the speed. It jumps off right away from the skill guys, from RJ Harvey and guys like that. And there are some big play threats certainly on this roster. How dependent do you think UCF's offensive success is on those explosive plays? Are they a team that you feel like can sustain drives, particularly with a backup quarterback, or do they need to hit the explosives to be able to put points up?
Yeah, again, I think if the running game is hitting, they can certainly sustain drives, and that sets up the ability for them to get those explosive plays. I talked about the running backs, but they have some really good receivers. Javon Baker, Kobe Hudson, Xavier Townsend. All those guys are fast, they're big, they're physical, they can stretch the field. And UCF will do a lot of play action, a lot of motion, a lot of eye candy, jet sweep, stuff like that to get defenses potentially off their eye discipline and try to hit those big shots. UCF absolutely will try to take their shot for explosive plays. They will find opportunities to run those kind of sets. I wouldn't be surprised to see them not try to hit one right out of the gate. We did something very similar at Boise State. We did something very similar at Villanova. One of the first 2 or 3 plays called, typically UCF would like to take a shot down the field with one of those big, fast receivers. So you will see UCF make that effort. But again, that's all set up by the running game, and that's all set up by the ability to kind of put some eye candy in the backfield and have the defense have to focus on the fact that there may be 3 or 4 guys on that field that are really fast. And before you know it, UCF's motioning them around and one sneaks back a defender. I think that's typically how UCF will attack a team, especially with the speed they have on the offensive side of the ball.
Adam Eaton from Sons of UCF joining us here on the Fleming Flakes Wine and Spirits hotline on 580 Sports Talk. K-State comes into this game with some injury concerns. It's not known as we're speaking to you whether Will Howard will start at quarterback. It certainly doesn't sound like Treshaun Ward, the Florida State transfer, is going to be available at running back for this game. He's kind of been RB2 or RB1B in that rotation with DJ Giddens. But going into this matchup, if you set the injuries aside for Kansas State, what part of this matchup, what part of the Kansas State offense maybe concerns you the most up against a UCF defense that, like you said, hasn't faced great offenses yet?
Yeah, I would say UCF's really young in the secondary. They have a lot of talent in the secondary, but they're young. And these are guys that are all learning to play together. 4 of the 5 starters in the secondary from last year are not with the team or are not playing right now. So they're young in the secondary. Again, very talented, but they haven't really been tested yet in tough environments against potent offenses. And so I'm curious to see how UCF secondary can hold up with Kansas State, particularly if it's Will Howard or Avery Johnson at quarterback. How will they win that chess match? How will they be able to make sure that they're keeping their eye discipline and they're running that scheme as well? So I think with a young secondary on the road, hostile environment, first conference game, that's probably the spot where I say, okay, that could be an opportunity for Kansas State to exploit some matchups and maybe find some areas on the field where some inexperienced players make mistakes or get out of their discipline and blow a big play for Kansas State.
What about on the defensive side, or beg your pardon, what about the defensive side for Kansas State going up against the offense? Where do you think a key matchup is there?
Yeah, from what I can tell, Kansas State's top 5 statistically in rushing defense and has a really good ability to stop the run. UCF wants to run the football, so it's one of those classic matches of our best versus your best, and who can come out on top there. So I think the ability to control the line of scrimmage, can UCF run the football, or will that Kansas State defense, particularly the D line, make that hard on them? I think that's going to be a huge matchup, and it's really strength on strength. And I think that's going to make this game so fun, is that the 2 things the teams do the best are the things that are counter to each other. So I can't wait to see how that matchup plays out, because I think that's going to be a huge part about this game on Saturday.
how big is this game for UCF? I mean, we know the success that they have had, obviously, a couple years ago under Scott Frost, but now you're in the Big 12, a legitimate chance making the college football playoff. Like, how big is it for this opening game?
I think for UCF, they want to, step foot in the conference, and they want to, they want to show that they belong, that they can play, that they're going to be a tough team in the conference. And so no better opportunity to do that than to take your first ever game on the road against the defending champions and go in there and try to play hard. So I think for UCF, this is a really big game because not only is it obviously a good Kansas State team, and not only is it the first conference game, it's an opportunity to really stamp who you're going to be as a program and what you're going to be in the Big 12 and put other teams, other fan bases on notice. So while they're certainly playing one opponent on Saturday, it feels like there's going to be an opportunity for UCF to really establish who they're going to be as a new member of this Big 12 and who they're going to be throughout the conference this year. So I think that alone gives them a huge opportunity. And look, first ever game in the Big 12. And so people are really looking forward to going to that Big 12 and starting off with a victory and trying to win. Plus, this is a revenge game. I don't know who on the audience out there remembers 2010 UCF went to Kansas State. A weather phenomenon appeared that I don't think I've ever seen before, and UCF lost that game. So this is a revenge game. We're 0-1 against Kansas State. I think UCF wants to go in there and leverage that score from 13 years ago.
I remember that the weather delay and the giant ominous cloud that was over the Veneer complex. We call that like a routine day, in the Midwest when it comes to weather phenomenons. The clouds look like that a whole lot of the time here in the Midwest. I do have to ask, since this is, the first year of the Big 12 for UCF, how is recruiting done? Because that's the one thing I think that many people in the new Big 12 are going to be interested in is now you got all that Florida talent has a chance to play at the top level. How has the recruiting been for UCF?
Yeah, UCF has been on a tear this season. Now, obviously, big caveat here, right? And nothing's official until people sign paperwork. But in terms of what they've gotten from verbal commitments, I think they're right now. I think it was On 3 had UCF somewhere in that top 25 class, which would be an all-time record for UCF to be in that top 25. So that vault into the Big 12 has certainly given UCF an opportunity to be way more competitive on the recruiting landscape. And you mentioned the Florida athlete is certainly there. And in a lot of years, that Florida athlete would say, hey, I'm going to go play at the Power 5, and I'm going to go to Syracuse or Pittsburgh and get those opportunities. Well, now UCF is telling these kids, hey, stay right here in Orlando, stay right where you're from, be a hometown hero, and be a part of the Big 12. UCF had its best recruiting class last season. Again, right now they're on pace to have their best recruiting class this season. Ink is not dry on papers, and 17, 18-year-old kids make all kinds of decisions. But as it stands right now, Gus Malzahn and his staff have done a great job of putting that fence around Orlando and really driving a lot of what they call the hometown hero program and keeping these kids local to Central Florida. So far, it's paid off. You're going to see some true freshmen play on Saturday night. John Walker on the defensive line is currently the highest rated recruit to ever come to UCF at the high 4-star. And the hope is that you'll continue to see more kids turn on their TV, see their hometown team playing meaningful games in big conferences and say, hey, I want to stay home. I want to do that too. So far, it's worked out. But again, ink's not drying on paper, and 17-year-old kids make a lot of different decisions all the time.
The last thing we got, give me a prediction. What do you think happens coming up on Saturday?
Yeah, look, I gotta think this is going to be a really close, tight game. I don't think this is a game where either team, blows the other team out unless there's just a crazy amount of turnovers. I think for UCF, they have to protect the football. They have to control the lines. And I think they have to win all three phases. I think special teams is a big part of what UCF will do. Again, they have a great kicker in Colton Boomer. I know K-State has a really good returner that we have to keep in check too. So I'm going to go with a really, really close one. I've got to take the homer call, though. 28-27 UCF and a thriller on Saturday night.
Adam, thank you so much for the time. We appreciate it. Enjoy the game coming up Saturday.
Appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Adam, thank you so much, man. Great info.
So that is Adam Eaton from Sons of UCF. That's how you can find them on Twitter. That's how you can find them in the podcast space. I believe they're on YouTube as well. Great UCF content there and a great preview of this coming Saturday night's game in Manhattan. He's picking the Knights, but remember, our Mizzou guest last week picked K-State by 2 touchdowns, and K-State lost that game. So maybe that reverses the mojo, at least in-house, and K-State can grab a win at home on Saturday, go to 1-0 in Big 12 play. Our thanks to Adam for joining us earlier in the day, and our thanks to you for hanging out with us here on this Friday edition of 580 Sports Talk. We've got one more hour to go on the program. I'm going to take you through the day's sports headlines, got the final participation reports and injury reports for Chiefs Bears and notable injuries from across the National Football League. We'll get you up to date on those in headlines. We'll also hear from Desmond Purnell, the former Hayden Wildcat and current Kansas State Wildcat. Brendan and I talked to Desmond earlier this week, and we're going to bring that interview to you in the 5 o'clock hour as well. Plus, one last look at all of the local football action this weekend, from high school to college to the pros, and then we'll wrap up the program with a final word before a little overtime ahead of Royals baseball. So stay with us here on 580 WIBW FM 104.9. We've got one more hour of 580 Sports Talk coming your way after we take a break for these sponsors and the news on WIBW. Let's get it. Final hour of the day, final hour of the week here on 580 Sports Talk. I am Dan Lucero, hanging out solo dolo for this final hour with Brendan Dworzinski and Jake Laban having checked out for the night. But never fear, you can hear the Power Trio tonight on coverage of the Lewis Toyota High School Football Game of the Week. That's where Brendan is. That's where Jake and I will be meeting him later tonight. Brendan's got the play-by-play. I'm on the analysis, and Jake is on the sideline. Massive Class 6A Centennial League football game tonight at Bowen Glaze Stadium here in Topeka. Washburn Rural hosting Manhattan. That game will be heard on our sister station, Classic Country 106.9. Pre-game coverage at 6:45 and the kickoff at 7 for the Lewis Toyota High School Football Game of the Week. We'd be delighted if you joined us. Or maybe you'll stick around right here on 580 WIBW, catch some Royals baseball. It is, after all, Cole Reagan's on the mound for the Royals tonight, and that's about the only starting pitcher for the Royals this year that has made you think, oh, they'll be competitive tonight. Reagan's is pitching. Royals Astros, 7:10 first pitch, 6:30 pregame coverage here on 580 WIBW. We'll have some overtime before that pregame coverage. We'll re-rack Matt Derrick for you, our Chiefs insider, in the 6 o'clock hour. Appreciate you hanging out with me here this afternoon, whether you're listening on 580 WIBW, FM 104.9. Checking us out on the YouTube. What's up, guys and gals on the YouTube? YouTube.com/@580 Sports Talk. Search 580 Sports Talk on Twitter. You can find us on Twitter at that handle too. But if you want to see the YouTube, go to YouTube. Search us on YouTube, 580 Sports Talk. It is that simple. Pull it up, jump in the chat, say hello. You can communicate with the show that way. You can also communicate with us on the text line. 785-272-9429 is the text line number. Want to know what you think is going to happen this weekend on the gridiron? Give us your K-State predictions. Give us your Chiefs predictions. Give us your KU predictions. Give us a high school prediction if you're going to a high school game tonight. Let us know where you're going. We'd love to hear from you. Again, the text line 785-272-9429. A little bit later on this hour, Desmond Purnell, K-State linebacker, joined Brendan and I for a conversation earlier this week. And we're going to run that for you here in just a little bit. But first, we start this hour with the headlines, as we start every 5 o'clock hour with the headlines here on 580 Sports Talk. And we start with the final injury report, participation report of the week for the Kansas City Chiefs as they head into week 3 action against the Chicago Bears. The news is not good for linebacker Nick Bolton. He will not play on Sunday, listed as out with an ankle injury that he suffered against Jacksonville. Did not practice all week. No Nick Bolton. It'll be Drew Tranquil who starts in the middle and wears the green dot for the Chiefs defense on Sunday against the Bears. Also ruled out Richie James. He's got a knee problem. It's an MCL issue, probably a sprain would be my guess, but that hasn't been officially reported. But he did not practice all week, so Richie James will not play. We'll see who Dave Toub chooses as his main kick and punt returner for Sunday afternoon. Reports are that Bolton and James have made some progress. They're getting better, but just not able to make it to game day this week. 3 Chiefs are listed as questionable. Linebacker Willie Gay, running back Isaiah Pacheco, wide receiver Kadarius Toney, all questionable. For Toney, that's good news. He did return to practice today with that toe injury, albeit on a limited basis. We'll see how much, if at all, Toney can contribute on Sunday. Willie Gay was limited for a second straight day with a quad injury. Isaiah Pacheco limited for a second straight day with a hamstring contusion. Full participation for everybody else on the injury list, so no injury designation for cornerback L'Jarius Sneed, cornerback Nick Jones, cornerback Jalen Watson, wide receiver Justin Watson, and tackle Jawan Taylor. How about the Chiefs' opponent? Chicago Bears have ruled one player out for Sunday. That's linebacker Khalid Kareem, who must have been injured in practice on Thursday. He had no designation on Wednesday, but was listed as limited Thursday. Did not practice today. He'll be out with a hip injury. Defensive back Eddie Jackson has a foot injury. Did not practice all week. He is listed as doubtful. So the Bears giving him a slight chance to be able to come back and play on Sunday, but it's going to be tough for Jackson to make game day. And that's a big deal because he's one of the best/only playmakers on that Bears defense. Only other player to not have or to have an injury designation for Sunday is Nate Davis, offensive lineman for the Bears. He did not practice on Thursday, came back on a limited basis today. It's being listed as not injury-related personal. So whatever is going on there, wish Nate Davis the best, but he is questionable for Sunday for the Bears. Mercedes Lewis was back at practice. No designation for him. He got his veteran rest day on Thursday. Defensive back Josh Blackwell, wide receiver Darnell Mooney, and offensive lineman Lucas Patrick were all full participants for the Bears and do not have a designation. They will be expected to go on Sunday. So that's your Chiefs and Bears injury report. What about the rest of the league? Let's go down the list. Maybe this helps you with your fantasy football. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe you're just interested from a competitive perspective and you want to know, who's going to play, who's not going to play. Let's run through it best we can for all of the NFL games on Sunday. We'll start with Patriots-Jets, which I think is going to be a gross football game. Jets have ruled out safety Tony Adams with a hamstring injury. Tackle Dwayne Brown is questionable, as is defensive end John Franklin Myers. For the Patriots, cornerback Jonathan Jones is questionable with an ankle injury. They put Marcus Jones, one of their other corners and their top return man, who, if you remember, won the game last year for the Patriots against the Jets, which with what was essentially a walk-off punt return touchdown. He's being placed on IR with a shoulder injury, so he's not going to play on Sunday. Few offensive linemen for the Patriots are questionable. Tackle Sidney Sow, guard Cole Strange, and guard Mike Onwenu are all questionable for that one. Titans-Browns. Titans will be without tackle Peter Skoronski. The rookie did not practice, has an abdomen injury. He is being listed as out. DeAndre Hopkins was limited today with an ankle injury. He is questionable, as is defensive end Danico Autry. For the Browns, quarterback Greg Newsome is out. He dislocated his elbow in that Monday night game against the Steelers, and he will not play this week. He didn't practice all week with that ankle injury. Only other player with a designation for the Browns, tackle James Hudson. He's questionable. For the Falcons and the Lions in Detroit, Cordero Patterson is questionable with a thigh injury. He didn't practice today. Jeff Okudah, starting cornerback, did practice in full, but he's also listed as questionable with a foot injury. Some notable injuries for the Lions, particularly up front. They're down two starting O-linemen, tackle Taylor Decker and guard Halapulavati Vaitai. I think that's right, or close enough to it. They are both out with injury. So is safety Kirby Joseph. He injured his hip. So is cornerback Emmanuel Mosley. He's out with knee and hamstring problems. So that's three contributors in that Lions secondary who are out when you count Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, who was placed on IR earlier this week with a pectoral injury. Wide receivers Josh Reynolds and Amon-Ross St. Brown are both questionable. Running back David Montgomery is doubtful with a thigh injury. So a lot of offensive injuries for the Lions this week as they try to bounce back. Of course, they beat the Chiefs in the opener, but lost in overtime to the Seahawks at home in week 2. Chargers-Vikings, get ready for points in that game, but Austin Eckler is not going to score any of them for your fantasy team or for his real-life Chargers. He's out with an ankle injury. Eric Kendricks also out for the Chargers with a hamstring injury. Joey Bosa listed as questionable, did not practice, still dealing with a hamstring injury, the star pass rusher for the Chargers. Much better injury report for the Vikings. Marcus Davenport's out with an ankle on the defensive line. Garrett Bradbury, questionable after being limited with a back injury. He's the starting center. Colts-Ravens. Boy, this is an awful injury report for the Baltimore Ravens. They've got 7 players listed as out, including 2 offensive line starters, 2 offensive skill player starters, and 3 defensive starters. All of these guys start. They're all out. Wide receiver Odell Beckham Jr., ankle injury. He's out. Running back Justice Hill out with a foot. Cornerback Marlon Humphrey out with a foot. Marcus Williams, safety, out with a pectoral injury. That could be long-term. Linebacker Odafe Owe is out with an ankle injury. Tackle Ronnie Stanley out with a knee. Center Tyler Linderbaum out with an ankle. The Ravens have been one of the most snake-bitten teams in the NFL as it pertains to injuries the last couple of years, and that appears to be continuing. The The Colts will be without rookie quarterback Anthony Richardson. He suffered a concussion week 2 and did not clear the protocol in time, so he is not going to play. Gardner Minshew will get the start at quarterback for the Colts. He'll be behind a new center because veteran center Ryan Kelly is also out with a concussion. Guard Quentin Nelson is questionable. Cornerback Kenny Moore is questionable. Neither practiced today for Indianapolis. Texans, Jaguars. The Texans secondary is beat up. Derrick Stingley Jr., second-year cornerback. He's out. So is cornerback Tavier Thomas and safety Jalen Petrie. All 3 of those defensive backs are out. So is linebacker Denzel Perryman. Left tackle Laramie Tunsil questionable for the Texans with a knee injury. He was limited but did practice some today. Jaguars will be without Zay Jones, that wide receiver. He injured his knee against the Chiefs, didn't practice. He's out. Safety Antonio Johnson remains out with a hamstring as well. Josh Allen is questionable with a shoulder injury, not the quarterback one, the defensive end one for the Jags, who had 3 sacks in week 1, but wasn't much of a factor against the Chiefs last week. Safety Andrew Wingard also questionable for Jacksonville. Bills, Commanders. Bills are clean. They've got nobody with an injury designation going into Sunday. A couple of players were limited in practice, including Micah Hyde and Leonard Floyd. And Jordan Poyer and Dawson Knox did not practice, but nobody has an injury designation. The expectation is that all players will be good to go for the Bills on Sunday. Commanders will be without tight end Logan Thomas. He is still in the concussion protocol after Kareem Jackson put an illegal hit on him in the Broncos-Commanders game last Sunday. Jackson was ejected from that game, but not suspended. He gets to play. Logan Thomas does not. You tell me how that makes sense. Curtis Samuel, questionable. He's been sick and has a hip injury. Was a full participant today at practice, but still has a questionable designation for Washington. Speaking of the Broncos, they're in Miami against the Dolphins. They'll be without 2 defensive starters, Frank Clark and Justin Simmons, both out with hip injuries. Defensive tackle Mike Purcell is questionable. Only doubt for the Dolphins is running backer Salvon Ahmed. He is doubtful with a groin injury. Bunch of players are questionable, including starting tackle Teron Armstead, tight end Tyler Kroft, linebacker Jalen Phillips, and wide receiver Jalen Waddle. Waddle is listed as questionable despite not practicing today as he continues to experience concussion symptoms. That one bears watching because the Broncos have one good defensive back. His name is Patrick Surtain the second, and he's one of the best defensive backs in all of football. In fact, if you wanted to tell me he was the best corner in the NFL, I'd listen to that argument. I think he's that good. You want to argue for Sauce Gardner, that's fine too. Certainly there were folks who would have argued for Trevon Diggs before he tore his ACL in practice this week. A lot of good corners in the league is what I'm saying, but Patrick Surtain the second might be better than all of them. They're going to put him on Tyreek Hill, which would leave Jalen Waddle against somebody who is not Patrick Surtain, which would make him in line for a big game against what has not been through 2 games, a very good Denver Bronco defense. But again, concussions are not to be trifled with. We'll see if Waddle can recover in time. Saints Packers, another 1:00 kick as we roll through the schedule on headlines here on 580 Sports Talk. Saints will be without Jamal Williams again, still dealing with a hamstring injury. The running back is out. Tight end Foster Moreau, doubtful with an ankle injury. For the Packers, they will be without starting guard Elgton Jenkins, good player. He's out with a knee injury. David Bakhtiari, questionable with his knee injury. He did not practice today, but note that it was also due to veteran rest and not just injury related. So he is listed as questionable. Also questionable for the Packers, running back Aaron Jones, who missed last week, wide receiver Christian Watson, who missed last week. Both are questionable. Jones was limited in practice today. Watson did not practice, but again, both are questionable. For the afternoon games on Sunday, Seahawks-Panthers in Seattle. No Bryce Young for the Panthers. He'll miss at least this week's game and maybe next week's as well as he deals with an ankle injury. Andy Dalton will start under center for Carolina. They're mostly healthy otherwise. Justin Houston, not that one. The other one is questionable with a calf injury. Seahawks have a lengthy injury list. Only 2 players, though, being ruled out. Left tackle Charles Cross remains out with a toe injury. Cornerback Kobe Bryant will miss on Sunday with a toe injury. Tight end Will Dissly is doubtful with a shoulder injury. And cornerback Tariq Woolen is questionable or doubtful, rather, with a chest injury. I'm sorry, that should be Reek Woolen. NFL.com hasn't made that change, but Reek Woolen was known as Tariq Woolen, his full name, during his rookie season. Told media this year he prefers to just go by Reek. So there it is. Reek Woolen, doubtful chest injury. DK Metcalf, questionable. He did not practice today with a rib injury, but is listed as questionable. Jaron Reed didn't practice, the defensive tackle, former Chief. He's questionable. Quandre Diggs did not participate in practice with a hamstring. He is questionable. Safety Julian Love, another safety for the Seahawks, did not practice today with a hamstring. He is also listed as questionable. So that is a beat-up Seahawks team against a Panther team down to their backup quarterback. Cowboys, Cardinals, you already know the big injury news for the Cowboys. Trevon Diggs tore his ACL at practice earlier this week. The star cornerback is out for Sunday and out for the season. Guard Zach Martin, center Tyler Biadasz, both questionable with injuries. Martin did not practice today. Biadasz was limited. For the Cardinals, linebacker Josh Woods is out with an ankle injury. Defensive end Carlos Watkins is out with a biceps injury. I don't know if either of those guys are important to the Cardinals. I just assume you could make up 11 names and tell me that was the starting defense for the Cardinals. And then I would say to you, well, what about Budda Baker? And then you say, I got you. Yeah, Budda Baker. And then give me 10 of the exact same names and be like, oh, yeah, that sounds right. I don't know a lot about the Cardinals is what I'm saying. And I refuse to learn. To be quite honest, they're not good enough for me to learn about them. So I refuse to learn about the Arizona Cardinals this year. They stink. They're sorry. I will not learn. I refuse to learn anything more about the Arizona Cardinals. Steelers Raiders is the Sunday night game. Steelers will be without Gunnar Olszewski. He suffered a concussion in the Monday night game against the Browns, but he is the only player with an injury designation for Pittsburgh. Only one Raider is listed with a designation. That's defensive end Tyree Wilson. The rookie was ill and did not practice today. He is questionable. Of course, no final designations for the Monday night games. We've got another Monday night doubleheader. How'd you all feel about that last week? 2 Monday night games running essentially concurrently on 2 different networks. Good, bad, indifferent. I thought it was stupid. Monday Night Football's for 1 game. If you want to run one of those double headers, they've done the double header in the past where the East Coast game, they kick it around 7 o'clock Eastern time, and then 7 o'clock Pacific, they kick a game out on the West Coast. I'm okay with that. But 2 games on it, staggered start by an hour, it was ridiculous. I don't understand. What I have read is that it's an experiment on the part of ESPN. I don't know to what end what they're experimenting with. Like what's the point of the experiment? I don't know. I don't get it. But it could be 2 good games, Eagles Bucks and Rams Bengals. Joe Burrow once again did not participate in practice today for the Bengals. And without saying it directly, Jamar Chase spoke to media today in Cincinnati and basically said that, yeah, it didn't feel like it was a real good sign that Burrow was on the cart during practice talking to the team owner. And also Chase said, without saying as much, that he doesn't think it's going to be Burrow under center when the Bengals play Monday night. I'd be pretty surprised if it was at this point. The Bengals are certainly preparing for that possibility as they added a 3rd quarterback to the roster today. You might remember if you were listening yesterday, I mentioned that the backup was Jake Browning and that they had Will Grier on the practice squad. Well, before the Bengals could add Will Grier to their roster, the Cowboys signed Will Grier. I think it was the Cowboys. It might have been somebody else. I don't remember. But somebody else signed Will Grier directly to their roster from the Bengals practice squad. So there went Will Grier. So the Bengals need another quarterback. They've added a gentleman named Reed Sinnott. I have no idea who that is. It is the first time I've ever encountered that name in my life. But he is QB3 for Cincinnati. He's on their practice squad. It says here he went to the University of San Diego. He is 26 years old. He is from Johnston, Iowa. Shout out to Iowa, I guess. Reed Sinnott backing up Jake Browning. That's what the Bengals are looking at against a Rams team that has looked frisky so far this year as they try to avoid an 0-3 start. All the best to the Bengals. All the best of luck. They're going to need it. Let's get some more headlines here on 580 Sports Talk. One more headline from the world of the NFL today. Basking in the glow of their destruction of the New York Giants on Thursday Night Football last night, the 49ers announced multi-year contract extensions for both general manager John Lynch and head coach Kyle Shanahan. No details on the length of the extensions are given, other than that they are multi-year extensions. Don't really have a beef with this. It's a winning combination, or certainly has been for the 49ers. They've been one of the best teams in the NFL since Shanahan has been their coach. Shanahan has gotten them to a Super Bowl. John Lynch has presided over this. In the front office, there is front office stability for the 49ers that did not exist during the Jim Harbaugh years and the years that followed, with a bit of a power vacuum with the former general manager, Trent Baalke. So I understand Jed York, the owner of the 49ers, wanting to maintain that stability by keeping John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan in San Francisco for many years to come. That being said, we sure they found a quarterback that's going to win them a championship? Because if you watched last night, you fired up Amazon Prime to watch last night's game. Quick aside on this. My wife and I were out for dinner last night. We went to a restaurant. We went to a restaurant in town, local restaurant. And before the game, we were seated at the bar area, and one of the managers at this restaurant was going around and trying to find the football game. And there's a way that you can, if you are an eating establishment, and I don't know exactly how this works, but it works in such a way that you can get the streaming games essentially on an over-the-air channel on your cable box. You don't have to have like 37 Fire Sticks or Chromecasts or whatever. If you subscribe, the cable companies or the satellite companies do the restaurant owner a solid, basically, and give them a channel with a link to the broadcast. And it took the manager a while to find that channel, but once he did, got all the TVs on the football game. So I got a chance to watch the first quarter or so of the football game at the restaurant. But as the guy was coming around the bar area, he walked right by us. And I said to the guy, as he's trying to change one of the channels on one of the TVs, I said, man, wasn't it much easier when they were just all on cable and they weren't on streaming? And I'm telling you, for a solid 30 seconds, that guy looked at me and shook his head and tried to form a thought what he was thinking about it and just couldn't start a sentence. Just so frustrated by the process of it that he couldn't start a sentence. And he finally just said, yeah, it's real low of the NFL, of the league to put these games on streaming. It is absolutely 100% not considering, the restaurant owner, the bar owner, who might like to have the Thursday Night Football game on and do so without having to pay an extra streaming fee for something. Like, it's not like you're having a bunch of Amazon Prime content watch parties at a sports bar, right? You're not showing up and running Fleabag or what was the other one? The Tom Clancy joint with Jim from The Office. Jack Ryan. You're not running like a Jack Ryan binge party at the sports bar, right? Like if you're paying for that product, you're doing it for 17 Thursdays a year, essentially. It sucks for them. And his exasperation was kind of amusing to me. Anyhow, that was a quick aside, meant to be a quick aside, ended up not being very quick at all. Let me get back to what I really wanted to say about the 49ers, is that their quarterback is Brock Purdy. And I don't think that Brock Purdy is bad, but if you watched him last night, I think you got the full Brock Purdy experience. He could have thrown 3 interceptions on the opening drive alone and could have very easily thrown a 4th on a pass later in the first half that deflected off the hands of his receiver and somehow went directly to another one of his receivers. Like, Brock Purdy's living right. He's 8-0 as the starter. You can't deny those numbers. You're trying to win football games. That's all he's done. He is 8-0 in the regular season as a starting quarterback. And the talent around him remains at a high level. The 49ers were without their number 1 receiver last night, Brandon Ayuk. It did not matter. Deebo Samuel had a monster game. Christian McCaffrey did Christian McCaffrey stuff. And the 49ers had no problem with the Giants team that looks pretty stinky. But watching Brock Purdy, I still see a little too much Iowa State Brock Purdy to feel 100% comfortable that that's going to be the guy that's going to win 3 straight big games against great teams in January and February. I just don't think that's in him. And if it's not, and if Lynch and Shanahan's evaluation of the quarterback position has given this team a ceiling that is below what the rest of the roster would dictate that it should be, then how good are they really at their jobs? It's just a question. I think they're pretty good at their jobs, but I do think it's worth asking, how good are you really if the job is to win a Super Bowl and you haven't found a quarterback that can get you over that hump? And you've evaluated that Brock Purdy is the guy who can. More so than the guy you traded 3 first-round picks to go get. I'm just asking questions. That's it for our 580 Sports Talk headlines. We're going to come back and hear from Desmond Purnell, Topeka, Hayden Wildcat, K-State Wildcat. Brendan and I talked to Desmond earlier this week. We're going to bring that conversation to you coming up next here on 580 Sports Talk. .534 on 580 Sports Talk. Dan Lucero here with you, taking you till the end of the program, through 6:30 actually, until we hand it off to Royals baseball. So there'll be some overtime coming up in the 6 o'clock hour. Earlier this week, Brendan Dworzinski and I had a chance to chat with Desmond Purnell. It's not the first time either of us have interviewed Desmond. Each of us got a chance to talk to him as a high school athlete of the week when he was starring on the gridiron for the Hayden Wildcats and head coach Bill Arnold. We caught up with him as a Kansas State Wildcat earlier this week as the Cats try and bounce back from their loss at Mizzou and prepare to take on UCF tomorrow night at Bill Snyder Family Stadium in their Big 12 Conference opener. Here's that conversation with Desmond Purnell.
Desmond, thank you so much for taking a little bit of time with us back in your hometown. Let's start off with just what this season has been for you guys so far, and for you in particular, now being one of the elder statesmen of this defense. Give us a little bit of a review, a little bit of a scouting report on what you've noticed from your guys so far this season.
So far this season, I believe that we all have just playing freely, trusting each other, getting after it, seeing our keys, and triggering fast.
What's it been like for you to, as I mentioned, be one of the elder statesmen of this defense now? I know you've been a contributor ever since you got to Manhattan, but now being one of the older guys and one of the more experienced guys on that defense, what has this experience been like, and how is this year different than years prior because of that?
I say for me that just being an outlet for younger guys to just have somebody to talk to so I can help them, so we can help out our overall team, just being a leader, developing in that.
Is that a role that comes naturally to you, that leadership?
Yes, sir. I always want to bring others along so we can help out the better of the team.
Let's go back to this past week when you guys took on Missouri, and obviously that game did not end the way you guys had hoped with that 61-yard field goal by Missouri, but the environment of that game, the fact that it was a sellout, there was tons of purple. We could see that on TV, tons of purple K-State fans that were there in the crowd. What was that environment like to go on the road, hostile environment with plenty of your own fans as well? Was that up there with one of the better environments you've played in on the road during your college career?
For sure. Whenever we first ran out the tunnel, I just saw like straight by our locker room was just a sea of purple. And I know I wasn't the only one that saw that. And I know that personally, I can speak for half the team that we're truly appreciative for our fans traveling that far.
Looking ahead then after that game, and again, obviously didn't end exactly the way you guys had hoped for, but it's a growing experience. It's a tough team on the road. And again, that is a good Missouri team. What are you hoping that you as an individual and you guys as a defense can take from that game and build on going forward? Is there any one element of execution? Is there any one scheme thing? Or is it more general, just what you guys are trying to work on to follow that game up?
I say that for us on the defense and maybe even the whole team, that we just have to make sure that we see our keys and just hit it. We shouldn't just like try to play passive. We should just make sure that we hit it and just go 100%.
Our guest is Desmond Purnell, linebacker for the Kansas State Wildcats, joining us here on 580 Sports Talk. Desmond, some tough news about your teammate and your fellow linebacker, Daniel Green. He's going to miss the rest of the season with an injury. How important has Daniel been to you personally and to the rest of the linebackers as a leader? And how motivated are you to go out and play and try and represent him and take him and his lessons out there with you this year?
Yeah, it truly broke my heart whenever I first heard the news from him. And then he just means a lot to me, because whenever I first made the switch from safety to linebacker, he was the one that taught me basically everything that I know about the position. He taught me where to put my eyes, how I should attack my leverage, and he's just been a great mentor for me. So knowing that, it really broke my heart.
How much did that position change that you went through? How much did that benefit you in terms of understanding the game, having seen it from two different positions, having been a part of, two different position groups, two different rooms, two different coaches, maybe instructing you on how to play? How do you think you grew as a player and your understanding of the game grew having to have gone through that?
I feel like it helped me play faster and to recognize certain formations and knowing where to put my eyes, and then being able to use my hands and also just to play faster overall.
We're talking again to Desmond Purnell here on 580 Sports Talk. Desmond, you're one of our own out here. You're a former Hayden Wildcat. We mentioned it at the very top. So I want you to take me back to youth football, your younger days. When was the first time that you had an inkling that you really had a gift for football, that it wasn't just something that you enjoyed doing or loved doing, but it was something that you had a chance to be really good at? Maybe one day it would pay for your college education like it is.
When I was young, I used to play for the Saints in Topeka, and my coaches like John Holloway and Tommy Greco, and they really brought a lot to me in that aspect of football, just from a beginning standpoint. And I just remember as a little kid just running for touchdowns, making tackles, and I really had a love for it. And then my older brother played football as well, and he taught me a lot about it the more I grew up.
So Brandon and I are both old enough to remember seeing you play at Hayden as a freshman, and it is hard at any school of any size to get on the field as a true freshman, but you were able to do that and make an impact as a freshman for Bill Arnold and the Wildcats. Was that an opportunity too, when you had the chance to go play as a freshman in high school, where you had the idea that, hey, I could be pretty good at this?
Yeah, for sure. I remember my first time touching the ball in high school, it was against Washburn, and then I had that touchdown score, and I just felt like ever since then it just really just ignited me to want to play more, because it makes me so happy, and then also it builds a family with your teammates, and everybody on that team is still very close to me.
How special is it then for you to get to represent Kansas and play for Kansas State and be now about 45 minutes away from Topeka, and to be able to hear your voice on the Jumbotron in the pregame say Desmond Purnell, Topeka, Kansas? What does that mean to you to be a Kansas kid on this Kansas State Wildcat team?
It truly means everything, because growing up, I was like, oh, I want to play at K-State. I want to play at K-State. And now that I'm truly here, it's really like a real moment. And then hearing my name and everything that you just said is just really shocking to me. And I'm just really happy to be able to play for the state here at Kansas State.
We're chatting with Desmond Purnell, starting linebacker for the Kansas State Wildcats, and Topeka native, former 580 Sports Talk Athlete of the Week. Desmond Purnell here with us on the program this afternoon as we gear up for K-State versus UCF coming up this weekend, a game you can catch right here on 580 WIBW. While we're talking about position changes, by the way, Desmond, more importantly than the shift from safety to linebacker, I've got to ask, how badly do you miss punting? I know that's something you did for Bill Arnold and Hayden as well. How badly do you miss the kicking game?
Not too much. I wouldn't. I was really good at that aspect of it, but I mean, sometimes it's really funny to see like Ty Zettner or Jack Bloomer out there punt the balls, and I'm like, it's really crazy to think I used to do that. But it's more like just a funny thing that I giggle about.
Speaking of Ty, really quickly, how cool is it to see guys that you have played with? And I know there's obviously a bunch of them. Deuce got drafted this past year. Felix Anudike-Uzomah is nearby with the Chiefs. Ty Zettner now signed full-time with the Texans. How cool is that for you to see these guys who you got to be close to, who you've played alongside, who you've gotten to know, to see them live out their dreams in the NFL? How does that make you and the rest of the guys who are still around on the K-State roster feel?
It makes us feel amazing, and it also just shows that, like, with their hard work, because they're all hard workers, that with hard work that you can truly achieve anything. And I'm just happy for all of them, man. The achievements that they made in their lives. I know.
Kansas State was always the dream, that you wanted to end up there. You wanted to play for K-State. You wanted to wear that purple. When you were going through the recruiting process, because I know there were a ton of schools, especially in the region, who were interested in you when you were coming out of Hayden, was that a pretty easy decision for you now going back 3+ years to know that, hey, once that offer from K-State comes, I'm in? Or did it really feel like you were being pulled in multiple ways at that point?
No, I feel like once I got the K-State offer, that it was done deal for me. I built a really great relationship with my coaches up here, like Taylor Brett, Coach Kleiman, Coach Clarendon. Built a really great relationship with my recruiting process and them. And I knew once they offered me that I'd be taking it.
So let's look ahead then, Desmond, to the rest of this season and what you guys can still accomplish. 2-1, great start to the year. And obviously after winning the Big 12 a year ago, that is still in your sights again this season. What are you hoping to continue to develop in your game? And I know that it's always about team first, but for you as a player, as a linebacker, and as a leader for this K-State program, what are you hoping to continue to develop as this year progresses?
I want to continue developing my leadership because understanding that Deuce and his injury that just happened, I know that I need to step up in my role and to bring the young guys along because we're going to need everybody on this roster to do what we seek out to do. And just overall, just playing faster, seeing my keys better, using my hands better, just playing more fluently.
And then the last thing I've got for you, Desmond, and again, we really appreciate you taking the time for us today. Let's look ahead to this matchup on Saturday. You guys take on UCF. You get them at home. One of the new members of the Big 12, so there's not a ton of familiarity between the two rosters. What do you know about Gus Malzahn's team? What do you expect to see from UCF coming up Saturday?
I know that from the film that I watched so far that they are really fast, and I know it's going to be a full 60-minute game, and we're going to have to be on every single aspect of offense, defense, special teams in order to get this one.
Topeka native, former Hayden Wildcat, now Kansas State Wildcat starting linebacker Desmond Purnell joining us here on 580 Sports Talk as we lead into K-State versus UCF coming up this weekend again, which you'll be able to hear right here on 580 WIBW. Desmond, thank you so much for taking the time for us, man. We appreciate you hopping out with us in your hometown. Best of luck coming up Saturday, and best of luck the rest of the season.
Thank you for inviting me to be on the show. Thank you so much.
That is Desmond Purnell. Pretty cool that Brendan and I both have now had the opportunity to talk to Desmond Purnell as a high school player and as a college player. That's one of the neat things about doing what we do and doing it where we do it is the ability to cover so many things from high school to college to the pros, and to be able to keep track of the prep athletes that we get a chance to talk to and see when they're, I mean, I remember Desmond Purnell as a freshman at Hayden, and I remember him getting on the field as a freshman. And like I said in the interview, it doesn't matter, what level of the sport you're playing at, like what class, how big your school is. If you can play varsity as a freshman, you've got some game, like you've got some real ability. And particularly when you're talking about a program like Hayden, which great numbers, great tradition, typically terrific veteran players, juniors and seniors who go through that program. And Desmond Purnell was out there as a freshman and stood out as a freshman. His speed, his size, And I remember thinking, I think he could play at the next level. And so it's pretty cool to see him getting the chance to do that and talk to him now as a college player, as a starter on defense for Kansas State. We're going to take a break here on 580 Sports Talk. When we come back, one last look at the local football scene for the weekend, from high school to college to the pros, as we come down the home stretch on this Friday edition of 580 Sports Talk. .48 on 580 Sports Talk. Big football weekend. Lots going on locally. We got high school football tonight. We've got college football Saturday. We've got the Chiefs and an NFL slate coming on Sunday. The first weekend of fall. I'm never 100% certain if the first day of fall is the 22nd or the 23rd of September. But either way, this is the first weekend of fall. And we've got some good high school games. We've got some great college games on the docket this weekend. Some good NFL games too. And we'll go ahead and just kind of sweep through the local action and keep you informed of what's going on and where you can hear what's going on this weekend if you're inclined to listen. Our Lewis Toyota High School Football Game of the Week tonight on our sister station, Classic Country 106.9, Washburn Rural and Manhattan. Rural 3-0, Manhattan 3-0, and defending Class 6A state champions. Barn burner of a matchup at Bowen Glaze Stadium. I'll be part of the broadcast. Brendan Dworzinski's got the call. We'll be with you on Classic Country 106.9 FM, starting with the pregame coverage at 6:45 and the kickoff at 7. That's one of only 3 games in Shawnee County tonight. A lot of teams are on the road tonight. Care Paravel Latin taking over Hummer Sports Park tonight, and they're playing Linden in a big 8-man game tonight. Linden 3-0, really good team. Care Paravel lost their opener, has dominated their last 2 games. They're 2-1. So that'd be a fun one at Hummer tonight. The only other game in the county tonight, Silver Lake's at home. They took down St. Mary's last week in a tight one, 29-28. They play Rock Creek, pair of 2-1 teams in Mid-East League competition tonight. Rock Creek at Silver Lake. As for the other city and county teams, Hayden's on the road, starting district play at Jeff West. Wildcats are 3-0. Jeff West is 1-2. Bill Arnold and company, take it easy on the Tigers tonight, won't you? My wife's a Jeff West Tiger, so hoping that Jeff West can put out a good showing tonight. They are 1-2 on the season after they lost to Sabetha last week. Topeka High's on the road. Centennial League play against Emporia. Two teams looking for their first win. Rossville trying to get back on track. They are at Atchison County. Rossville lost to Hayden last week. They're 1-2. Atchison County's 2-1. Highland Park looking to stay unbeaten. They're 3-0 in the Meadowlark Conference. They're at Harmon tonight. Harmon is 0-3, and they're going to be 0-4. Highland Park's going to put it to them tonight. Shawnee Heights trying to stay unbeaten. They go on the road. United Kansas Conference play at Baser-Linwood. Baser-Linwood is 1-2. Seaman also on the road in UKC action at Lansing. Seaman trying to bounce back from that overtime loss to Shawnee Heights. Topeka West is on the road at Piper in another UKC matchup. Saturday college football. Washburn Ichabods are at home. If you want to filter down to Yager Stadium, catch the Bods trying to make it 2 wins in a row. After they beat Lincoln last week, they play Central Missouri tomorrow, 1 p.m. kickoff. And Jake LeBon will be on the call of that one over on our sister station, Classic Country 106.9. Yours truly pinch hitting as the public address announcer at Yager Stadium tomorrow. I've done some baseball. I've done some baseball PA. I've done some basketball, done some volleyball. Never done football before. So I'm excited for that. So if you're at Yager Stadium, you will hear my voice. And if you are not, you can hear Jake LeBon's voice calling the action on Classic Country 106.9. KU BYU at 2:30 in Lawrence. K-State against UCF, 7 o'clock in Manhattan. You can hear that game on the big 94.5 Country because we've got to make way for Royals baseball here on 580. So the Wildcats will be on 94.5. The Chiefs on Sunday against the Bears, 3:25 kickoff, 2 o'clock pregame. They will be on the big 94.5 Country as well. I think it's going to be a clean sweep for the in-state teams. I think that Kansas will beat BYU, even though I think BYU will keep it close. That point spread getting to 9.5 was kind of surprising to me. I think BYU is going to keep it close, but I do think KU will win at home. I think K-State finds a way, whether or not Will Howard plays. I think Avery Johnson's ready. I think he's ready to make some plays. I think UCF coming on the road in conference play for the first time. I think Kansas State, a motivated Kansas State team, is going to have something for them on Saturday. That'd be a good game too, but I expect Kansas State to win. And then I think the Chiefs are just going to toy with the Bears on Sunday. The Bears are a mess. Keep down teams down. Keep struggling teams struggling. And I think that's what the Chiefs are going to do. Some predictions from the YouTube comments. Vance has the Jayhawks by 7, the Wildcats by 4, and the Chiefs by 17. Mark's got K-State by a field goal in a high-scoring game, 33-30. Got the Chiefs by 3 touchdowns and the Jayhawks by a touchdown. Thanks to you guys for chiming in on the YouTube comments. Thanks to all you for tuning in. We've got one more break and then the final word coming your way next here on 580 Sports Talk. this week on 580 Sports Talk. We got some overtime to come, but we're wrapping up the 4-hour version of the program with this final word. Earlier this week, I broke down how the Chiefs have performed as a double-digit favorite with Patrick Mahomes as their starting quarterback. And they maybe haven't performed great to the spread. So maybe they've dinged your wallet a bit if you've been confident in the Chiefs' ability to really handle business against the worst teams on their schedule. But make no mistake, these Chiefs handle business. They're 21-2 straight up as a double-digit favorite since 2018. They've won 14 straight games, and I think if they can stay away from the penalties, they're going to have no problem moving the football. If they resist the temptation to blitz and make Justin Fields beat them within the pocket, within structure, he's not capable, I think, of doing that. And I think the Chiefs will cruise and might even cover that 12.5-point spread. I think they're going to pretty handily, actually. I've got them winning 30-13, and I think it's going to be the first time in the first 3 games that you're going to leave out of that one feeling good about the Chiefs offense. This is a get-right game for Mahomes and company, and I think they are going to get right. That's final word. That's the show for today. We got some overtime coming up. We're going to re-rack Matt Derrick, our Chiefs insider from earlier in the program. Check out the archive on our YouTube page, 580 Sports Talk. Go to the website, 580wibw.com. Find the podcast archive for an hour-by-hour breakdown. If you missed anything, have a great weekend, everybody. For Jake, for Brendan, I'm Dan. This has been yet another edition of 580 Sports Talk on 580 WIBW.